Hey, here's episode number 264 with David Duck Burns. And so the whole duck thing, we had to get into that. I had to ask him where it came from. I'm a big fan of people who have these funny names in our industry, funny nicknames. And so had to find out where Duck came from. I found out, and it's funny. We actually even have an image that he shared with us. So, Duck has done a lot of really cool stuff, owned his own lighting company, worked with Robert Roth and survived, and went through the whole world stage. Worked there for a few years, learned a lot of stuff, and then watched it crash. And we talked about that a bit, and lots of fun stories. So, very enjoyable episode. I hope you love it as much as I liked recording it. Have fun. Hello, episode number 264 is brought to you today by AVL Media Group. AVL is your premier North American distribution partner, committed to developing a long-term, mutually beneficial business relationship with its dealers through professional products at competitive prices backed by excellent sales, service, and technical support. AVL Media Group concentrates on project-based installations, servicing the design and contractor markets with their unique approach and innovative products. AVL Media Group is the go-to company for audio, video, and lighting in Canada. As the exclusive U.S. distributors for Midas, LabGruppen, Lake LMX Processors, Tannoy, Clark Technique, TurboSound, Aston, Wharfdale Pro, and now BZB Gear products in their lineup, they are committed to delivering excellence to their partners at every level by providing outstanding pre- and post-sale service and support. Visit avlmediagroup.com today for more information. And today's podcast is also brought to you by Row Visual. The Graphite series is renowned for its lightweight design and durability, making it the go-to choice for quick and efficient installations. The series boasts an intuitive smart lock system that significantly reduces assembly time by up to 40% compared to conventional LED panels. Along with magnet-assisted assembly, this system facilitates the construction of large LED walls and ceilings with remarkable speed and ease. Graphite's versatility is unmatched. It offers both full and half panels that cater to a variety of configurations, including walls, ceilings, and curved displays. It even accommodates raked angles and double-sided construction. Graphite allows for in-service maintenance, making maintenance easy. The power supply units and LED modules can be replaced while the display is operational from either the front or the back, ensuring uninterrupted service. It embodies the perfect blend of practicality and innovation for creating captivating visual spaces. Its presence at big events hosted by Fortune 500 giants such as Google and Oracle, as well as prestigious esports competitions like Dota 2. For more information on Graphite, GP, and other LED solutions, please visit rowvisual.com. I'll tell you, it's been an interesting week so far. Yesterday, of course, I recorded with Jake Berry, and Jake and I had an offline conversation that I can't share much about, but very disappointed in something that he told me. And I mean, if you want to hear a personal story, you can call me or reach out to me, but I'm not going to share it on the podcast. But yeah, very disappointed in what I heard. And I'm sure there's 13 sides to every story, but this one I didn't like. Some other news that came out of Plaza this week is that SGM has been purchased by Golden Sea out of China. And so this is interesting for a number of reasons. And I will admit right now, I don't have a lot of facts yet. I do have some, I guess, information through all kinds of different sources and stuff. There's been a Facebook group post that, for me, that group tends to be sketchy at best when it comes to its sharing of information. Sometimes there's really good information coming out of it, but usually it's a lot of opinions and propaganda and stuff that isn't always necessarily 100% true. So make sure you check in with the sources. Make sure you listen to reliable people, talk to reliable people. I generally won't share information unless I have some facts on it. So I won't usually share opinion. I will share opinions. Certainly everything I share is an opinion, but I won't share information that I've sort of heard through the grapevine unless I think it's true or I think I have some foundation to share that. So this is true. You can look it up. Golden Sea has purchased SGM. Some of the things that I've sort of heard or talked to people about, and I can't necessarily tell you who those people are. Some will be competitors to SGM. Some are employees of SGM. Some are maybe even former management or ownership of SGM. And so what I'm hearing so far is basically, yes, Golden Sea has bought SGM. What I do know is that SGM had made the decision either to file bankruptcy or to sell the company. They were shopping the company. I am told that the pricing was fire sale pricing. The company was under a fire sale. So basically, emergency, we need to sell it before a certain date. And therefore, the price was obviously at rock bottom for a company with their history. And certainly SGM has some great products, some great people, and some great history. So that is very important when you're looking at a brand like that. The things that I don't know are, so let's stay with what I know for now. What happens to Denmark? I guess that more falls into what I don't know. From what I understand, they have hired back employees. They are fully functional as a factory right now since the SGM purchase, or since the Golden Sea purchase. I have been told that Golden Sea have had people inside the factory since probably early August, both poking around, but then since the purchase, also just looking at how better to manage that facility. There's a lot of things there that I'll talk about on the I don't know side. The other things I know is that the U.S. Location in Orlando is fully functional, is selling product. They have been taking orders. They never did shut down in any way. And now for the things that I don't know. I don't understand exactly the ownership of the sort of subsidiaries of SGM, the U.S. included. I am under the understanding or belief that it is owned separately from SGM. So it's owned by, a U.S. group or people or whatever. It is a separate entity and therefore was not wrapped up in any of these bankruptcy discussions or anything. Obviously, you don't need a U.S. SGM office if you don't have SGM to sell. But aside from that, there was no disruption to the U.S. office, and I think some of the other global offices as well. What I don't know is what Golden Sea's plans are. And so I'm going to try and find out information. And as I do, I'll report that back to you. Here's where I'm going to interject my own opinions or thoughts. It seems or feels like SGM maybe is looking to start expanding their manufacturing outside of China. And that will have everything to do with not just the U.S. Taxation or whatever you want to call it, but basically the tariffs that have been imposed on some of those products coming into the U.S. And so I would expect that they're looking to manufacture in other areas and expand their manufacturing capabilities. I don't know if this is one of those ideas. Denmark, I've got some experience and some knowledge. It's not the least expensive place in the world to manufacture. And to offset that, I remember Peter Johansson when he was at Martin, not when he was at SGM, but I think he probably used similar principles in setting up SGM in Denmark. But one of his principles was that he never wanted labor to be more than, I believe it was 10% of the cost of a product. And if he was manufacturing something in Denmark, he wanted 10% or less to be the labor cost. And the thinking behind that was, at that point, we can compete with anyone in the world. It doesn't matter how little they pay their employees. As long as we have good automation in the factory and we're able to manufacture very efficiently with less labor cost, we will be able to compete with any country in the world. That was partially true. You certainly saw that companies, including Martin, went to less expensive areas to manufacture. I think most of the Martin products are either made in China or mostly in Hungary, I think, at this point. And so, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting move. I don't know exactly how SGM will fit into the picture with Golden Sea. I haven't yet talked to a lot of key people that I would like to talk to and get some information from them on that, so that instead of interjecting with opinion and Marcel's thoughts, I'm interjecting with facts and backed up information. So congratulations to the employees of the company. You are not only saved, but you're now part of a larger group that is well funded, that is a public company, publicly traded stock in China. And they're a great company. I mean, Golden Sea have done amazing things, and I would expect that it's going to be a positive change for SGM. And, you know, for people who think that they're just going to pick up and move everything to China, that hasn't been how they've done things in the past. And yes, Ayrton products are manufactured in China, but they're still designed, developed, supported in France. And I've been to the facility, so I know it exists. I know it's not just a fake made up thing on social media. They do actually have a facility in France where they support their products. They design their products. They engineer their products. It's where Chris, the CEO, Chris Ferrante's office is in Paris, or just outside of Paris. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this is obviously a good thing for a brand that's struggled for a while. SGM hasn't had the easiest run for a long time. And remember, SGM is a very old brand. It's not like they've only been around for 15 years or something. I remember SGM in Italy a long, long time ago, and I'm talking like 30 years ago. And so, you know, I think this is potentially a very positive thing for SGM, for its employees anywhere in the world. Certainly in America, I think they're going to put on a harder push. I just don't know how it fits. You know, does SGM stay separate from Ayrton? You know, is SGM a competitor to Ayrton, or is SGM different than Ayrton? Does SGM as a brand go away, and does that manufacturing facility just become part of Golden Sea, and it makes all kinds of products, not just SGM products? None of these things I have answers to yet. I don't know what their vision or their future holds. I will let you know more information as I hear it. So, today's podcast, we have David Duck Burns, who is an experienced account manager and technical director with a demonstrated history of working in the events services industry. Skilled in production management, stage management, lighting, sound, video, LED, and rigging. From opera to country, hip hop to metal, dance, theater, television, and corporate events. Sorry, there was a typo here, Sarah. David has worked them all. He has loved living abroad and traveling the world over the last 40 years. The friends, knowledge, and business contacts he has gained are beyond measure. So please, folks, join me in welcome David Duck Burns to the podcast, episode number 264. Well, I see a duck. Quack, 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 quack. Never heard that one before, I bet.
Oh, yeah. No, most of the time it's goose.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the goose a lot.
You know, we're absolutely going to get to where that name came from, because I've got a love for sort of the history of people's funny names in our industry. And like some of the funniest, like Poop. I'm sure you know Poop.
Oh, I know James. Yeah, I know James. And
Yeah,
I'm like, that's what I use an example. It's like, I'm glad to have the duck nickname because there's a lot worse with ring dick.
exactly. Poop
Poop.
is
I
the
mean,
extreme. Yeah.
there's some bad ones out
What
there.
what are some other bad ones? Come on, share.
Ring dick,
What?
ring
I
dick.
never heard
Did you
that
know?
one.
Sean Webb, I think, he used to work with audio analyst a lot
Yeah.
with the Lucchesi
I
brothers.
don't know Sean though.
There's
Ring dick. I don't
ring
even
dick.
want to hear how
Yeah,
he
I
got
think
that one.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know if
Uh,
the channel might ban you if we tell that story. But
yeah. Oh, I don't know.
so
We've
but
told some interesting
but yeah, there's
stories.
some bad ones out there. But yeah,
Yeah.
duck is a good one to have. I tried to shake it a few times over the years. Especially when I moved from touring into corporate,
Yeah.
and then you find out that the corporate people think that's just the coolest, funniest thing ever, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now I guess now you just call it a brand, right? It's your
Yeah.
thing. That's how people
No,
know you. And
but you never went as far as legally changing
no,
your
no,
name or
no,
anything,
no,
because some people
no.
have. Like some people have taken on their stage name, and
Their old monikers, yeah.
yeah.
No, but we used to check into hotels like
Yeah.
that. You know,
Oh,
all of the
really?
yeah. You used to go in. You roll off the bus and you roll up to the front desk, and it's like, "Hey, I'm Duck. I'm Scooter," and there's your envelope with your name on it, right?
That's
You're checked
funny.
in. It's like,
That's
okay,
fantastic. I love it.
but
So yesterday I had Jake Barry on, and like most people in the industry, I'm sure you've worked with Jake at some point in your life.
hmm
Uh,
I've been fortunate enough to cross paths with Jake.
yeah,
I
I mean,
I got one of the.
I think he's
Go
one of
ahead.
the PM OGs, right? Like he's got to be up there on the
He's
list, you know?
the he's the benchmark.
Yeah, I think so.
He's the
Like,
bench. He's the top of the mountain,
well, plus
right?
if you're going to do something massive, like if you're going to go and break barriers and just here's the conventional, here's, how we're going to do it.
hmm
And, like yesterday, as an example, he said Bono came to him one time, and I can't remember the whole story. You have to listen to the podcast. But he said Bono came to him and said, "Hey, Jake, I want to do this stadium thing in the round. And can we do that? Is that possible?" And Jake said, "B, if you ask for it, it's possible. We'll do it. If you want it, we'll do
Absolutely.
it." And so they did. And so, I mean, the Sphere thing for him was just another challenge that he needed to tackle and all that kind of stuff. So I love the guy, but
Oh, that show looks so good in there. That was
yeah,
so amazing.
yeah,
And industry people get it. Like, we know what it took to
yeah,
get that show on the stage, right?
yeah.
And all the players, everything had to fall in line. The amount of pre-production that goes into something like that
Well, it was almost a
is
year. It was
incredible.
almost a
Yeah.
year for them planning for it. It was
hmm
insane how much time and effort you two and you should really listen to it because it's super interesting. The things
Oh, I
like
will. I
how
can't wait.
even just how they did rehearsals. Like how do you rehearse for a venue that has never existed before,
That,
a format
that
that's
nobody's
never
done a show
even
in.
just the audio, like having the band with this wacky surround audio. And he said Edge would say, "Hey, I want my guitar in that one song, I want it in the top right, and then in this other song I want it in the bottom left," or whatever. Like he'd because you could position it wherever you wanted it, right? And but yeah, just talking through that was incredible. And I'll tell you one thing he did is I've been a fairly regular naysayer of the whole Sphere thing. Like I've used Led Zeppelin as the example. If I see Led
hmm
Zeppelin, like if God forbid Bonham were ever to come out of the grave and say, "Okay, I want to do one more gig," and they put it all together and I got to see Led Zeppelin because it's my one, like, God damn it, I never saw Led Zeppelin, right? I never saw the Beatles either, but Led Zeppelin for me is the big one. And so, would I want to see him in the Sphere, or would I want to see him in an arena or even a stadium stage? And to me, the Sphere is very distracting. It's hard to see the band. And Jake changed my whole mindset on that. He said it's a very different experience, and you have to look at it as that. It's a different way of experiencing that
Yeah.
music, and you can't compare it to an arena show. You just can't. And
It, and that, yeah, that's true. It's a fact. And it's just the, yeah, the complete immersive nature of that
Same word he
thing
used. Yeah.
is incredible. And I
Yeah.
think that, but I'm, as you're telling me that, I'm thinking, man, could you imagine seeing the song remains the same, like the footage, just like
Yeah.
completely surrounding the band while the band's on
Yeah.
stage? It's like, the John Bonham piece where the dragster's going and he's doing the drum
Yeah.
solo for
I never
Moby
thought of
Dick, and
that.
you're like,
It's a good
oh,
point. Yeah, it's a
that
good
would be
point.
cool. That
Or
would be
even
so
Stairway to
cool to see.
Heaven, like what
Oh
would they
yeah,
do for Stairway to, I never thought of these things. Yeah, that'd be incredible. But again, I'd still rather just see the
right.
band. Like I wouldn't even want LED screens except for iMag or whatever. Like I just would want to see the band, just the guys in the band and hear it great and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'd want all
Hear an
that
old
immersion.
school, get an old school show for
Yeah,
that.
maybe for
But
your
I could see
10th
that
time
too.
seeing them or something, it's like all these deadheads that went for Dead and Company.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
and the fish and all that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like those people to see it in a different way for them was like life changing, right? Like I've got a
yeah,
friend who's a crazy Fish fan, like to the extreme. He's seen 200 shows or something, right? And he said it changed his life, seeing them in
yeah.
the
The
sphere.
visuals are pretty amazing. I leave for Vegas tomorrow. I may try to sneak over there on Sunday and see the
Oh,
Eagles.
cool. Cool.
I don't know.
Oh,
We'll
they're
see.
they're in the sphere now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they start this weekend. So if I
Oh, do
can
they?
sneak over before the show I'm working on starts, that would be cool. Maybe
Is
we'll
it
see.
this weekend? Because
Okay.
UFC is in there in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
quick turnaround.
That's going to be crazy. Um,
Well, I heard they're
that's going to
having
be
trouble. I
crazy.
read yesterday that they're having trouble selling like tickets that were. I think the cheapest seat was $3,000 for
Oh
nosebleeds,
my
and
God.
those are down to like seven something now because you can't see the sphere screen stuff from some of these nosebleed seats.
Right,
And so it just
right.
takes away that whole experience. And now it's just a fight from far away. And I might as well just go watch it on pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
So, but back to
We'll see.
Jake. You got any of your
Uh,
own Jake stories? Have you
yeah.
ever worked with him or anything?
So I've had the privilege of being on a couple of his teams over the years, but my first interaction with him was probably my favorite one. And this was pretty sure we were out doing it was Glass Spider, right?
Oh, David
Bowie.
Bowie. Yeah.
And we were in I don't think we were in Vancouver up in BC. And I was out there with the opening act, right? So I'm out there with the Georgia Satellites.
Okay.
And I had only been in the business a short amount of time at that level, right? Like
Yeah.
on that national touring level, done the bar circuit stuff, worked for the local small company when I was in high school,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I'd only been in the big time there for a very only a few years at that point. But I knew who Jake Berry was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in catering, and he came in and he sat down and he was eating his supper, and I'm just sitting there like I'm like
Yeah.
18, 19, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh my
Guys,
God,
guys, the
it's the
OG.
guy.
Yeah.
And so I was just I said something along the lines of, man, how do you do it? How do you how do you do this?
Yeah.
And he just looked right up at me and very just calmly said, hey, it's really easy. You don't have to be an asshole all the time.
Mm.
You have to
Yeah.
have the ability to be a complete one when the time comes,
Yeah.
but you don't have to be nice to people.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that was like the
That-
coolest thing, right?
So
And
simple
so,
yet so powerful, right?
right. And so
Don't be a
here we
dick.
are.
Don't be a
Yeah.
dick is
Don't
some
be
of the best. Like it's how do you survive on a tour bus? Don't be a dick.
don't
you
be a
know?
dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick and you'll be fine.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's amazing how far that can carry you in so many different parts of life, but in touring
Mhm.
life, it's massive because you literally become part of a forced family, for however many weeks, and you live in very close quarters, and you're together all day, every day, and
All night, every night, especially in
yeah,
the old days, dude.
yeah,
When we're doing 5, 6 cities a week, and then you get a bus ride for a day off, and then
yeah,
you're pounding out, up all those one nighters with these massive rigs. the level
Yeah.
of trust that has to be instilled very quickly,
Yeah.
um, the teamwork that gets developed very quickly.
Yeah.
I miss those days, man. I
Yeah.
miss those because that's what touring was, right? And
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to start in the industry about the time that most of the cats who figured out really how to do it in the 60s and 70s were starting to retire a little bit, right?
So
So I still
when
had some of
when
the
and how did you
OGs.
start?
So I mean, it really just God, years are horrible for me.
Doesn't matter.
Mid 80s, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, so started out doing some of the regional bar band stuff with a lot of the Atlanta had a great music scene there in the
Mm.
80s. I mean, we had all these just incredible bands. So I'm working with local bands like the Swingin' Richards and Bareback, PG-13, which would some of those guys would evolve into Jackal,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jesse Dupree and those
Yeah, I
cats.
remember them. Yeah. Yeah, my
There's
ex-wife worked
there
for
were
Geffen and was part of the team breaking Jackal at
oh
the
right on,
time. Yeah,
right
so I
on,
saw
and
them way too many
Snow
times.
and Illusion, which was one of Mo from Mother's Finest side projects. Incredible musicians, right? We just had the best music scene here, and so doing a bunch of regional stuff with them,
Hmm.
and then I ended up. The big break was Kevin Jennings. I had been helping out a band called the Hellhounds, and working at a couple of the local venues, working with a couple of the local sound companies and stuff, and I started off in audio and then doing backline. And Kevin Jennings ended up managing the Satellites when they reformed. He had taken
Okay.
their demo. They couldn't get any traction here, so they kind of split up. Dan um, Dan was doing something else, and then Rick and Morrow had the Hellhounds, and it was just chugga 145, just
Yeah.
straight up rock and roll stuff. And so we were doing a bunch of dates, and then Kevin took the demo back to Europe and got them a deal. So they got back together, and then Elektra picked him up. I think it was Elektra picked him up, and then um, so that's kind of how I got kind of thrust into the national touring thing
So they dragged you along
was
with
working
them.
with them. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was me who was a dude. I was so young and stupid, and I knew nothing and thought I knew everything and knew nothing. A guy named Steve Winstead out of New York
Don't know him.
was a guitar tech and kind of stage manager who I believe is still working with Mike Campbell. I know for sure
Huh.
um, from Tom Petty. Steve's kind of a legend in the guitar tech world. But I was young and just
So what was your gig?
maybe not quite mature enough. So I was doing drums. I was doing backline,
Oh, okay.
right? So I was doing drums for Morrow and then taking care of stage left during the show. And the way I got thrust into the lighting is we were out doing REO Speedwagon,
Okay.
opening for REO, and Hartley was on. Brian was on that tour.
Yeah.
Robert Cooper was on that. Was I think it was Life as We Know It. And getting to tour with those guys was like the all star of all stars, right? Like, and everybody had a nickname, right? So it was Motor, Liz, Sluggo, Porky, like
Yeah.
all these great guys who were fucking legends, right?
Yeah.
And they had their own roadie band called Hotel Bill and the Incidentals
Okay.
that would
That's
open
funny.
some of the shows.
Love
But
that.
getting to tour with those guys, and at one point during that tour, Kevin Jennings comes over and he goes, "Hey man, can you do lights for us?" And I'm like, "Sure." You're like thinking like,
Of course I
how
can.
hard can it be, right?
Yeah.
So I walk out the front of house. It's this big ass Avo like 8100 or something,
Yeah.
180 channel, 3 scene pin matrix thing, and I'm just like, oh shit. And it was the LD for them. I think I want to make sure I get this right because he deserves Jim Stevens.
Okay.
Jim Stevens was the LD for REO, and we happened to be sitting out there, and he goes, no idea what you're doing, huh?" And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so for like the next 5 weeks while we were out there opening, he said, "All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to do this." And every night
Damn.
I would sit there with a headset on, and kind of the first few nights, just kind of watched him listen to him call the spots and watch him run the show. And then at a certain point, he let me start banging the
Handed you the
buttons,
wheel. Yeah.
handed me the wheel. But he kept calling the spots for another few days.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just handed that off to me as we went. So about 3.5 to 4 weeks into it, because we're doing 5 nights a week, right? So you're getting to practice your craft. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the just kind of visually representing what was happening, kind of helping control the mood of the audience with what you're doing, and seeing how everything all interacted together. It was such an awesome learning experience. And Motor and Liz and all those people really took me under their wing, dude, because I would show up for rigging calls. Right. I did the same thing on Seeger when we were opening for Bob Seeger. I would show up for rigging calls and just jump in and help the sound guys fly their PA or help the lighting guys fly their truss, just to be around those people and to learn. And putting in that work ethic kind of got me, opened up some doors, right?
Yeah, that's alone is such a great lesson.
Oh my God.
That is such a great lesson. Like,
so Jim, if you watch this, thank you, brother. Thank you.
No
thank
kidding.
You for
that too, like, these days, I think the only people that are really doing that still are the old school people. Like I could see, I could see Cosmo, I could see like a lot of those types of people saying, "Hey kid, come over here, watch what I'm doing. Let me show you, let me help you, let's help get your desk set up properly or whatever."
Martin does that a lot. Martin Thomas.
Yeah.
He's doing that a lot too. We need those younger people, man. We're timing out in the next 10, 5 to 10, right? We're timing out.
But
we need them.
I don't want to pick on young people, so I don't want this to sound wrong, but I see less young people who want to share information in that way. And that's problematic, because I think, again, this industry is one that, where people work together and somehow, the rising tide sort of scenario,
Yep.
And when people just kind of want to like go, don't look at my cues, what I'm doing over here, that doesn't help anyone really. And I mean, how many secrets really are there? It's not like
none.
You're doing something.
We've all ripped them all off from somebody else.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And by the way, guess what? If you're hiding yours, AI is going to get it anyway. So
anyway, for sure. Oh my gosh, dude. But that's kind of how I got started, the initial push. And then the REO thing was being done by Nocturne, and Val D was kind of, I don't know if Jim said something to him, but Val was like, "Hey, when you get done with this, when you get done with these guys, why don't you give me a call and let's get you out on some more, get you working some more."
Wow.
And I mean, they had a stellar crew. I mean, Jim, and then of course Robert Cooper was the crew chief, and Hardy was on that. On that tour. That was the first time I saw moving.
Which tour was that?
In the air. Life as We Know It.
Oh, okay. This was REO
they
still.
Had this big, big triangle kind of cloverleaf thing that they would fold in the sides.
Right.
I mean, it was really beautiful, really well done. But being from Atlanta, a bunch of the shows the Satellites were doing, we ended up using RA and Jim Chapman.
Yeah.
Ended up getting the gigs from live, it was Southern Concerts at the time, I think, which was Alex Cooley and Peter Conlon and those guys. Yeah. They were kind of the kings of promoting in the Southeast. And so that's how I got hooked up with Robert and Jim. And when my time with the Satellites came to an end, I called Jim, and he's like, "Hey, come to the shop." So I went to the shop the next day, and they put me out on the road like 2 days later.
Oh wow!
On that tour with Martin and
which tour
and all
was
those
that?
guys.
Oh, that was the REO tour. Oh, no, Salt and Pepper. Thing, yeah, right.
Where I got the nickname.
So tell me the story. Tell me the nickname story. God. We're
Tommy
there.
Marzullo.
We're at that point of the podcast where we need to learn how the hell did Duck happen?
So Tom Marzullo was the production manager on that. Martin Thomas was the LD. So actually, how it happened, it was pretty sure we were in Hartford, Connecticut. We had just finished loadout. We get on the bus, and it was August 25th, which was my birthday. And somebody found out it was, I don't know how or what, but the next thing I know, there's a lot of this going on, a lot of this going on. And the next thing I know, I'm just blacked out. Like, I don't remember what happened,
Uh-oh.
anything. But
That's not
years
good.
ago, Martin was moving and found a bunch of old Polaroids and sent me a picture of a picture. And I don't know if we could
I can see
kind
it
of
pretty good.
see it,
Yeah,
but
it's
I'm
got a duck
standing there
bill
with
on
a
the hat.
Donald Duck hat, a
Yeah,
basketball goal stapled to my chest, and that's Jack Adams, who we'll talk about some more in a minute,
that is
standing
funny.
in the background. And the next morning, everybody's calling me Dr. Duck, and I got no clue. Like, I don't remember anything.
Oh, you don't even
And
remember
it's
wearing the hat.
no,
So
I
when you
remember
saw the
nothing.
picture, you were like, uh-oh.
Oh, dude, I called him. I'm like, oh my God, man, where the hell did you find this?
Yeah.
And so it was just one of those things. And yeah, there are a lot worse ones to have. So
Is that
we'll stick
it?
with that.
And so it just couldn't go away. Like probably initially you were like, please stop calling me that. You know?
I I don't remember ever having like an adverse reaction to it,
Really? You
right?
were just like, okay, that's my name now.
But I will say when I stopped the touring full time and kind of moved over into, I went to film and TV first and then moved into corporate. And when I started doing the corporate stuff, I was like, tried to just go back to the David thing. And then I found out that the corporate people, they just don't get exposed to, rock and roll people. And
Yeah.
so they thought that was just the bee's knees. So I
Yeah.
was like, all right, so we're just going to milk it and use
Yeah.
it.
Once a duck,
So
always a duck, I guess, huh?
once a duck, always a duck, man.
That's
So,
funny.
but yeah,
Uh,
that's how I got the name.
yeah, I love it. What was Looney on that tour too? Bob Looney?
Bobby was on that tour. Yeah, Bobby and I were roommates.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know, Bobby. Have you had Bobby on yet?
I haven't. I don't think I have his current number or something. I remember trying to reach out to him,
Oh,
and
we'll get you hooked up. We'll get you hooked
yeah,
up,
please,
man.
because I want to get
Oh
Bob
my
on.
God.
I've mentioned it to him before. I think I saw him at LDI once or something a
Mhm.
couple of years ago, and I'm like, dude, you got to come on the podcast. Yeah, and it's just never happened. It's never
Yeah,
happened.
him and I were roommates on the first like fistful of tours that we were all doing for RA, and
Yeah,
so this is probably 87, 88, 89, right? And we are all just out of our minds as that's how touring in the 80s was.
yeah,
And you're talking about an elite group of the most high functioning addicted personality people that you could ever
yeah,
assemble
yeah, yeah.
who are operating at the highest professional levels under questionable mental
Somehow,
conditions.
yeah. Well said. That's a word
Yeah,
salad,
pretty
but
good.
it's really well
Word salad.
described. Yeah.
Um,
Well, with a
but
leader
yeah,
who's no better,
oh my God.
like RA, come on,
Oh my God.
he's a year clean now, right? Like completely clean and sober, quit
Yeah.
alcohol
So we
completely.
still do. This year was the first year we haven't done it in a hot minute, but every summer we try to get the Roth guys together here in Atlanta
Oh, that's fun. That's really
for
fun.
at least a little bit of a meet and greet. We did not get to do it this year yet. I mean, the
What a
year's not
fun idea,
over.
though. That's
We could
cool.
do that,
Yeah.
but it is really cool to get everybody together and just see, just catch up. And RA shows up to most of them, most all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Robert comes and hangs out with us, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But
I love that guy. I
he's been
love Robert.
instrumental through my career, and we
Yeah.
always say if you never worked for him, you don't ever get to say shit about him
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy
ever.
was an innovator, like a lot of the things he did, and I hate to say the square parkan because I know what's going to
Yep.
happen.
You're
I
gonna
knew
see
you had a
one.
prop sitting there ready to go. The
I
square
do.
parkan.
The
Yeah.
OG square park cans.
Unreal. Unreal.
These things vent better than the round ones.
Yeah.
You would get 6 cuts of gel perfectly out of a sheet, as opposed to 4 and not enough scrap to do a Lico frame.
So there was actually some thinking involved.
Oh yeah, so and the bulb was held in by 2 springs
Yeah.
that would never bind. So
Yeah.
you could always rotate it, and that, not like those clips we had in the
Yeah.
Thomas cans and
I
stuff
know.
like that.
Pain in the ass.
So these things were amazing, and
Yeah.
we built our own truss in house.
Yeah.
We wired our own truss in house. Oh, speaking of which,
That's just how it used to be done too, you know?
on truss patching,
Oh my God. Look at
Lee
this.
Mueller
You just
boxes,
have this
right?
shit laying around your office, or you brought it in because you were doing a podcast?
So
Look
I
at
called my
this.
buddy Brian Beck.
Ah,
Who
he
had
said, I
this
need to
stuff.
borrow some props.
I need some props.
That's
And
funny.
was
So
after
all the
listening
guitars
to,
and stuff are yours, though, right?
yeah, oh yeah, that's all mine.
Those aren't props.
No, those aren't props.
That's awesome, though. Like, it's
But
true.
yeah,
I mean,
all the innovation we used to
team,
do.
team really did some cool innovation, and their tours in the 80s and early 90s and stuff were amazing. It was
I got to tell this story. So one of the first things I go after we finished up the salt and pepper thing, they sent me out to do Hank Williams Jr.
okay.
And Hank was on a roll of winning these Entertainer of the Year award things. And so the rig was a Kiss-sized rig for a country guy, right? But it's rock. It's straight up rock and roll, except for his like solo acoustic thing in the middle of the show. So we had these huge pods that broke down into 2 rectangles with 100 of these square pars in each one of those, right?
Oh wow.
And then we had a thing that went on the back with a Ruger. Ruger Firearms was a big sponsor of his. So we had a rope light and velour drape. It was a rope light of a Ruger Eagle, and it was velour. And so we fabricated that, and then we had a way to mount it to the back of these huge square pods that sat at angles in the back of on the rig.
Okay.
So you had upstage, midstage, downstage. We had a bunch of torms hanging off the upstage. Had these 100 lamp pods that we would start the show with them flat down low. We had our own Steve Dunaway, Wookie, Peter Magdars, Jerry Higginbotham, Honeymoon. These guys, Lynn Wheeler, ETC, one of ETC's top cats. They custom built all of our control stuff.
Wild.
Motor control, patching for the consoles. All this stuff was all built in house. So we had high speed, low speed motors and our own custom motor controller. And to do the moves that we were doing with these things, which we were, like I said, we would start down low and then bring them up and tilt them out, just, it's so awesome. And this is like 88.
And that was for Hank Jr.
Yeah, for Hank Jr.
Because, I mean, in the 80s and even early 90s, country acts were like, pretty small rigs and a dozen IntelliBeams if you're lucky, a dozen IntelliBeams if you're really good. But they got
this is all pre IntelliBeam 400s, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was cool as shit to see Steve Dunaway over there with his fingers on the motor controller like this, and Honeymoon standing there with a fucking stopwatch. That's how we did the motor moves.
Really?
And we would take these things, and as we did the show, we would turn them and stuff like that. But when it came time to do the acoustic set, we'd do a full invert and then light up those Ruger Eagles on the back.
Wow.
This is the kind of shit we were getting exposed to. And here I am, I'm like 21.
Wow.
At this point, and LDing this stuff, 22 years old, and
that's
LDing
unreal.
These massive rigs.
Yeah.
And nobody in Hank's camp had any input at all.
But when you did a tour like that with Roth, was he overseeing the design? Like,
absolutely.
You were designing it sort of in tandem with him, and then you were going out and directing
when
it?
I first started, like those first ones, like Hank and stuff like that, that was stuff that him and Jim did. Short Point Design.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Would come up with the designs. I didn't know enough at that point.
I see.
To
that was a little big for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had timing, I had a feel.
Yeah.
And I got really good, thanks to Jim Stevens, I got really good at calling spots.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I always really took pride in was
Yeah.
being really good at that. And
Which is a science
so,
unto itself.
oh my God,
Yeah.
but it was so much fun. And you just get in the cadence and you're just in a rhythm, right? And you've got the audience in the palm of your hand with the artist and you're
That's
just
fun.
killing it. And
Yeah.
so to get out there at that age with a rig like that, with no instructions, right? None,
That's wild.
was incredible. And
Yeah,
to
here
have
you
that
go.
freedom.
Here's the keys to the race car that you're about to go out and drive at 200 miles an hour, Go for
Oh,
it.
we got to talk about that too. I
Oh,
forgot.
yes, we do. I'm using racing
We got,
analogies already.
yeah, I know, dude. We got to talk.
Oh, we'll get to
Just
racing. Don't
renewed.
worry.
I just renewed my 30th year at SCCA.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. No, we'll definitely get
we'll get
into
down that
that.
road.
Me and Jake talked about racing a bunch yesterday too, because
Oh,
he's a big Formula and NASCAR and racing guy, and
yeah.
there's some really weird stories that I had no idea. Like he sponsored Scott Speed. I don't know if you know who Scott Speed is,
Oh,
but
I do. Yeah.
yeah, so Scott was one of my son's coaches, and his brother Alex and his dad Mike Speed owned the karting team that my son raced on for a few years. And he built our engines for a long time and stuff. And it was just weird when he goes, "Yeah, Scott Speed," and I'm like, "Wait, you know Scott Speed?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "Do you know his dad?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I've been through the ringer with Mike Speed." So really funny. But anyways, we'll get into that.
All right. But so yeah, so just getting the keys to the kingdom like that at that
Yeah,
age
that's so cool.
was nuts. And but again, you're really getting to practice your craft like 5, 6, 7 days a week, right? So
Yeah,
you're honing your chops at a very high rate of speed, and you're just absorbing. I was just absorbing all of this stuff while going through some serious like character development stuff too, like right.
yeah,
Because so here you are, you get turned over the keys to the kingdom like that, and yeah,
yeah.
I'm cool.
Well, and all the other
No,
stuff is being
no, I'm
thrown
not.
at you at the same time.
Oh
The partying and the
yeah, oh
girls and the unbelievable glamorous rock star lifestyle that you're living. And so that's all being thrown at a 21-year-old kid. That's wild. Like it's,
oh yeah. Uh, I got reminded of that one day when evidently I was acting inappropriately. I'm
uh-oh.
not sure exactly what I did or said, but I had long hair at the time, and Kirk Marks, who owned Rock and Road Audio, uh, grabbed me by the back of the hair, whistled for Dunaway, dragged me off into one of those little bathrooms off the side of the entrance there in the arena, slammed
Yeah.
me up against the wall, and they started, and basically telling me that my behavior was not going to be tolerated, and that's not how professionals act on the road, right?
Damn.
Had a little
You don't
fun with
remember what
Jesus.
you did?
I don't remember what I said, but evidently, and I, I don't think I said anything directly to somebody, but I think it was more of a comment of something that was happening, and
The wrong person overheard the
right,
wrong thing and
right.
it had the
But
wrong result. Yeah.
no, it had the right result.
Yeah. Yeah.
It had the
Straightened you
right
out, huh?
result. Oh yeah, it did. I never forgot that,
Yeah.
and that was a good reckoning to have. Those guys, fucking legends in the
Did they throw
business,
you off the show or
no, God,
oh,
no.
so they just gave you
We
a
were
good
keeping
wake
the
up
tour.
call.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because they knew. I think they knew that I was, yeah. I had made some quip about something, and it just rubbed Kurt the wrong way. But
Yeah.
I'm glad it did because I needed to hear that in
Yeah.
that situation. I needed to
That's
hear that,
interesting. Yeah.
and so again, just luckiest man alive. Have had all these awesome experiences working with the top people in our industry
Yeah.
and just
It
trying to
sounds like
learn
it.
as much as I can from them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, again, Roth provided, like, if you think
Oh
of the
my
people
God.
that went through R.A. Roth, you know, I saw a picture too. I was looking for you on Facebook because I always like to, before we have a guest on,
Mm.
I like seeing the personal side of things too. Do they have kids? Do they have a wife? Do they have, what are their hobbies and things like that? And I couldn't find you, but I found a post by Rod Gibson, Red, and it was a picture, and I don't know if you remember the picture. I could actually find it again and share it with you, but um, but that made me think again, like of, yeah, Red was at R.A. Roth too. Like all these
Mm-hmm.
guys, so many people went through that shop. It's unreal.
I was the one who dragged Red across the border on that STP tour.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was the
interesting.
stage manager on that tour,
Interesting.
and Red,
Well,
yeah, Red,
I grew up in
yeah.
Western Canada with Red, and
Hmm.
I quit playing in bar bands before he really got big into doing that. And my bands were always shit and we couldn't afford a real crew anyways, but um but we knew each other just through the channels and stuff. And I went to work for a music store selling guitars back to all these bands and stuff. And so, we ran in the same circles basically and we knew each other, but didn't really have much of a relationship, and certainly not from a lighting standpoint until later on. But he's a great guy.
There's a couple of stories I'll tell you offline.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Some of
Well,
those
no,
can't be shared online.
he's got his green card now. We can tell a couple of those now.
He might
Uh,
have told it on my podcast. I don't know. Yeah,
about the dry ice bomb.
I don't remember. Tell me.
Oh my God, dude, that was another one. Speaking of Red, real quick, here's a good one. You'll love this.
Yeah.
Um, so that Salt and Pepper R. Kelly tour that he mentioned
Yeah.
on his interview, that's where I met my wife,
Oh,
Kelly,
huh.
and uh,
What was she
Rod
doing on the
introduced
tour?
me. She was doing wardrobe. She was
Oh,
doing
okay.
wardrobe for the
Cool.
girls and for Salt and Pepper. And Red introduced me to Kelly. So the first
Wow.
time I get called out, the tour's already 2 or 3 weeks in, and I get called out to stage manage. Robert sends me out there to stage manage this, and I flew to Gulfport, Mississippi. I walked down in the arena there, and I see Kelly. At that time, she's pushing a cart of clothes, wearing knee-high motorcycle boots, Daisy Dukes in a sports bra with her long black curly hair, and I'm like, damn,
Damn.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
All right.
damn.
Yeah.
So I
That's
walk in the
mine.
production office. First thing I say is, "Hey, who was that?" Bill Reeves, another bloody legend who I've
Yeah.
had
Yes.
the good fortune to work with. Bill looks at me. He's like, "No, hello, no, nothing." I said, "No, not till I find out who that is." Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get the tour going. We're get on the road there, and Red introduced me to her, and then took about 8 weeks to get her to go out with me on a day off, and we finally did on Canada Day in Toronto.
Oh,
So they're
fun.
doing the Tall Ships Festival and everything
Yeah.
down there in the bay in the harbor. And so yeah, Kelly and I spent the day doing that, and that was it, man. We've been together
Wow.
since 90. What was that, 91 or whatever it was? Yeah,
That's wild. That's got to be
yeah,
tough, though, being, well, I mean, first of all, having a relationship with somebody who's on the same tour as you has got to be
it
tough
was
because,
awesome.
really?
Yeah,
There's not a
we
lot of
loved it.
like turned up eyebrows and like, what are you doing? Kind of stuff. Like,
No,
oh,
no,
huh.
no. But she did make the sound guy pay up, because I think at one point I told her, I said, "Well, I can't remember his name. Worked for Sound Image." And he said, "I'll bet you $100 that yeah, you don't get her."
Really?
And like it was like an end of the tour party thing. And Kelly walks over to him and says, "Pay up."
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. So when did you get married? So that was what you said that was in 89 or
No, that
91 or
was
something?
91. We got married after our first show, so we didn't get married until 96.
Okay. And you're
And
still
Aiden, our
together. You
oldest, was born in 95. We
survived all
have.
those years of touring and shows and
Mm,
yeah. So is it better when somebody is in that
thousand
lifestyle?
percent.
Yeah.
1000%.
Hmm.
Because you just hit the nail on the head. And I've heard you go over this with other guests on your show. This isn't a job. This
No.
is not a career. There's no trajectory. There's no ladder. I mean, to a certain extent, there might
Yeah.
be. There's from trust monkey to tour manager.
Yeah.
There's a progression, but it's a complete lifestyle. And unless you're willing to commit yourself to the lifestyle, you're going to have a miserable experience treating it as a job.
Yeah.
And because I think one of the keys to our success anyway, and there's been other successful ones with people, one
Yeah.
person in the
Yeah.
industry and one out.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely one of the keys is she understands. She
Yeah.
gets it. She knows what it takes to do the job.
Yeah.
And therefore, if I have to leave town or if I had to go do this or go do that, I didn't get nearly as much crap as people who were in relationships with people now who didn't understand the business.
But the flip side of that is they also know where the bodies are buried. Like they know the flow of girls in and out of tour buses. They know,
Yeah.
they know the parties. They know all of the stuff that's going on. So that's the downside of it is you can't lie. Like you can't bluff and say, no,
Yeah.
I just went to sleep at 9:30 and, read a book, like they know that's probably not the case.
But Kelly's also the cool one that would, when you're at the strip club at 2 o'clock in the morning with all the
Yeah.
roadies in the band, she's
Yeah.
going in the back and dragging them all out.
Oh, that's
you
funny.
know?
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at first with my ex-wife, it was kind of like that because she was in the music business. I was in the lighting business, similar industries, similar people, similar, debauchery. And neither one of us complained about what the other one was doing or there was no mistrust or there was no breached trust either,
Exactly.
and
100%. Yeah.
and then it just shifted and it was like, you're going to do what? You're going where? You're going to Las Vegas again? You're out till 2 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? And I don't know, maybe that's age. Maybe that's just when you hit a certain point in the marriage where it starts getting a bit iffy. But, one of the things about this lifestyle industry is that, I think you either love it or you're going to hate it. And, it's like, again, using Cosmo as an example, like the over poster, Facebook spammer that he is, the one thing you can see through all of his posts, and I love his posts, by the way, so I'm not putting it down, but he does post a lot. And the one thing you can see though is that he friggin' loves it. He loves the lifestyle. He loves every bit of it. And that guy lives every day. Like if he's got a day off and he's in Austria, he's going to go out and see stuff. He's not going to sit in his hotel room and watch Netflix. He's going to go out and see stuff. And I love that. Like I love people who say, I'm the luckiest man on earth and I get to do this. I have to do this. I get to do this. Right?
I get to do this, and I have gotten to do it for pushing up on 40 years, like 38, 37, 38 years now, right? Like
yeah,
all
it's
of
wild.
We're
It
you,
happens
me, Red Bell
fast.
Martin, we're all about the same. It does, but you know what? All those experiences, and I will say, going around the world with Kelly was great, right?
Yeah.
On those days off,
Yeah.
I got somebody to go hang out.
Yeah, no kidding.
And go
That's
do
perfect.
these things and do that stuff, and it's just been great. Our kids were brought up in the business. In and around the business. They're no strangers to tour buses,
But how did that work if you were both touring and you had kids? Like, how does that work?
So, good segue. Come around 97, Aiden was almost 2 at that time, and I was getting a little tired of the being away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also hearing all the stories from all your peers about their kids growing up without them and they're not being at home and all this all the stuff they miss, and I was like, that's hit heavy for me. So there was an opportunity that came through Turner Broadcasting. It's so, you're trying to put this story in order.
It's hard. A lot of things have happened.
We'll go into more detail about it, but the synopsis is I had an opportunity to start my own lighting company.
Yeah.
Here in Atlanta.
Was that East Coast Lighting?
East Coast Lighting and Design.
Yeah, because I remember that company. I think we've done business over the years and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so Chris Donati, Donut, another Roth alum, who has had a stellar career as well. Donut really helped me and gave me the comfort, like you're not doing it alone, right?
Yeah.
And so we were able to acquire quite a bit of equipment, um, and really kind of start this thing. And as this whole thing happened in like a fucking 72-hour period, 96-hour period, Robert was RA came to the rescue. I called Robert and I was like, I may have just stepped on a landmine here, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And he sourced me a warehouse real
So what
quick.
was the challenge though? What made you call Robert? What was
So
the
so I had been working down at Turner Studios with some Roth guys, John Halden, Thomas Branch, Tony Newman. Halden was the guy who kind of opened the door for everybody down there at Turner because
Yeah.
they were a little fed up with the union, quite frankly. And John didn't want to tour much anymore, so he started doing TV. So he was pretty heavy down there. And he says, "Hey, I know these Turner because they only had the one studio at the time. They would have NBA on TNT, which do the West Coast games, and so they would have to turn around between like 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. to do Turner Classic Movies that next morning in
Okay.
the same room, in the same studio. And so the union, these guys weren't getting to shoot until like noon or after lunch, and it was just a bad situation. And John convinced the powers that be to let him bring a bunch of roadies in and a bunch of people who didn't know shit about TV lighting. And we did it in 6 hours the first couple of days. And then we had it down to like 3 hours after
Oh,
that.
wow, yeah.
Right.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so that's how a lot of Doug Lloyd, Thomas Branch, Tony Newman, John Halden, a lot of these guys started gravitating down toward Turner Studios and getting a lot of work down there.
Right.
And John opened the door for us and for them. I had mentioned to the guys that I had wanted to kind of probably start my own thing so I could stay home more, control my schedule a little bit more. John hooks me up with one of the higher ups there at Turner. And this was kind of when WCW was being bought by WWE.
Yeah.
And so all that was going away, which was a huge Roth account.
Yeah.
All those pay-per-views that we used to light,
Yeah.
2,500 par cans, flying
Yeah.
dimmer beaches, all that
Yeah.
crazy shit. Um, anyway, we ended up acquiring a lot of that gear.
Oh.
Um, and so that's how it started. So now I've got all this equipment and I'm like, where the hell do I put all this?
I think a bunch of that gear came from Frank Santoro in Orlando, didn't it?
It did.
FLA
Yeah.
Productions. Yeah.
FLA. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of that. There was some
Yeah.
of that in there.
That guy
I saw I had
scored.
some old Bash boxes, some Vanco
Frank
boxes.
Frank did so well because
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
he made a lot of money off of FLA for a number of, or off of WCW for a number of years as their lighting contractor or whatever. Then he sold them his entire inventory and
Yep.
just worked for them as production manager, lighting designer, whatever he was.
Yep.
I mean, it was just such a great gig for him. He made so
It
much
was.
money from that.
It was. And
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm glad for him. I always liked Frank. I
Yeah.
always got along with him.
Frank
So,
was a good dude. He
um,
reminded me of Frank Zappa, though. It was always so
a
interesting.
little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I
just
think
real
more
laid
like
back
just the
attitude.
way, but the way he talked,
Yeah,
like that cadence
yeah,
that Frank Zappa had.
yeah.
Santoro
No,
had a lot of that
well, and a
same kind
similar
of
look, you know,
mannerisms.
with the facial
Yeah,
hair
yeah,
and the long hair
yeah.
and stuff. Like
The mannerisms, that kind of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I really like Frank. I haven't spoken to him in a few years, like probably 5 years now. Last I spoke to him, he had a Harley Davidson detailing company and had created all these products that were
Oh,
like
wow.
Harley Davidson licensed to clean your bike and stuff. And he was doing really well with that too, but I think he was going through divorce at the time, as I recall, and
Oh,
that was
man.
killing him.
Bummer.
And yeah, so anyways, sorry, back to your story.
Oh, no
There's all
worries.
these
So,
sidebars that
yeah.
because you
But
remind
this
me
is,
of things.
I know, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
So I called Robert and I'm like, hey, I got this thing and I need some help. And he's like, thanks. Give me 20 minutes and I'll call you back.
So you had a bunch of gear that you'd acquired
I need to
and
put
you had no
something there.
shop. Yeah.
nowhere to put it. And
So where
so he
was it? Was it
calls
still sitting with the people you bought it from, or was
most,
it in a
yeah,
truck or?
it was still in like three or four various
Oh,
locations,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so Robert calls me back and he goes, I got you squared away. It's going to be like 600 a month. Here's your new address. And I'm like, so I drive with Donut and I drive over there in the car, go check it out. Sure it is. It's a one bay, just a little one bay shop. So
Yeah.
we went and rented some 24s and went and start picking this stuff up over the next couple of
That's
days and just got it
hilarious.
all in there and then spent like 2 weeks sorting it out. Um, and then we're just fortunate enough, just all these great people that I have had in my life, right?
Yeah.
Gin Street was the production. Gin Street and Dave Scruggs and Kerry Glennon were all kind of running the Roxy Theater here in
Okay.
Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So was
Great
able to
building.
convince them to let us put a house rig in there under a contract, right?
Oh,
And from that spawned a contract for the Tabernacle for a period of years
nice.
and did a lot of stuff at Chastain.
Was that your
Um,
idea to do that, or did it just happen by accident?
it
Or
just kind of happened.
because what a
The
great way
Roxy
to
thing,
cover your payroll. You know what I mean?
right,
Like to have recurring weekly revenue that you don't have to go fight for every week,
right.
and
So
you
you're
know
doing a
that you've got at
monthly,
least 10
y-
grand a month coming in or whatever it
yep,
is, right?
yep, yep,
That's
and you're
such
getting
a great
that, and
idea.
you're providing the LDs, you're doing the services on the
Nice.
weekly or every other week. The Roxy thing started because I had a buddy come through on a tour and needed a support package, and we just showed up. Donut and I showed up, did it ourselves, and like our gear was in good shape. We were all pro about it. Um, I knew Dinosaur Dave, who was the LD down there at the time, and he hooked me up with Scruggs and Jen and Carrie, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we like what we like you, we like what you guys do." And I said, "Well, hey, well let's put something together," and we made that happen. It took about 6 months to get the deal.
Well, it was probably
You
really
know,
logical for them too, because they probably looked at the pain in the ass that it was to keep getting different gear from different places. B,
mhm.
they probably looked at their average and went, okay, we're paying normally 3 grand a week, and if we can get him to do it for 2,500 a week, and it just stays in here the whole time, it makes a lot of sense to us, you
And
know?
we gave him some bang for the buck, right? We gave him
Yeah,
some bang for the buck,
yeah,
and so that worked, and so that's
yeah.
how I was able to be home more when Aiden was young, and then we had Kieran, our youngest son, who actually just came into town today.
These are not
So
millennial names at all, by the way. Aiden and
Kelly's
Kieran.
Irish. Kelly's
Oh,
Irish.
okay,
So
there you
yeah,
go. Yeah,
Aiden and
there you go.
Kieran.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was able to kind of control the schedule. Now we had opportunities to grow the business, but that wasn't the plan. The plan for the company was I didn't want to grow it into an RA Roth or a whatever, right? I just wanted to maintain controlling my schedule for a certain amount of time. And then when we felt like the kids were old enough, sold the company off, which was almost 10 years. Sold the company to Magnum,
Oh,
to Eric
interesting.
Magnuson, which was great. Another character lesson happened 6 months later. Eric passed away. Um, and he turned the company was now in Todd's
Todd.
hands, his
Yeah.
stepson,
Yeah.
who has done an amazing job with that. I did not handle that whole thing very well. So hence another character development lesson.
Oh,
Um, I was not, I did not handle that situation very well. And needless to say, ended up parting ways with them. And
it
but Todd
happens.
obviously has done an amazing
Yeah.
job, right?
No,
And
but it
then they got bought by
happens.
Thorwall.
And
So
sometimes you know what, it's not any one party's fault. Sometimes it's chemistry, sometimes it's
oh no,
whatever.
this was 100% my fault.
Oh, is it?
100%,
Uh,
100%.
I was
Um,
trying to rescue a little bit
no,
there,
no, it's
you know?
okay. It's okay.
I was trying to rescue
So,
you.
but then I went to work for one of my clients who ended up doing a lot of corporate work. And so
Yeah.
that's what got me into the corporate arena was going to
Ah,
Staging Directions.
Interesting.
and working the corporate thing, and that was right when corporate was starting to really mimic rock and roll. Like they wanted
Bigger,
these
better,
huge
brighter.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Huge
wanted these
LED
big rock show
screens.
looking things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Well, and didn't a
and
lot of
that's
that
where I
start
really,
with the E3, like the game conference,
oh
the
yeah,
big game trade
yeah.
show,
What did
E3?
we used to have here? Was it E3? Yeah, E3
E3 was
Super
the big one.
Show,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Super Show,
Super
things
Show,
like
yeah,
that.
for
Yeah.
sports.
So, which used to come here in Atlanta, and
Yeah.
Atlanta just doesn't have bupkis now. Got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cornhole championships. That's what you.
Well, it's so hard to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to these convention centers and stuff because everyone keeps demanding more, and
Yeah.
so Orlando had to build a whole new convention facility, or lots of them. Vegas obviously keeps building. It's crazy. It's like some of the biggest conventions, you either have the facilities for them or they go to Las Vegas, period,
Right.
or Chicago
Right.
or New York. But yeah, so as you grew bigger into the industrial thing, the corporate
Mhm.
thing, you eventually made your way into World Stage, right?
Eventually made my way into World Stage, which was an epic eye-opening moment, right? Like I'm working with people who I consider amazing, and they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
They are.
really great people.
But World Stage exposed me to a completely different level of production, product development, execution, logistics, labor, how you manage labor. It really opened my eyes to a different level, right, on the corporate side that I had
Just
not.
because of the scale of it, or did they do something very
the
differently?
sheer size of these events is
Yeah.
incredible, right?
Yeah, they were doing like Google size events and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it was, and the level of technician that you're dealing with, the level of engineer that you're dealing with was was eye opening and amazing.
Well, and
And
the quality and size of the gear and stuff like that, like the equipment lists.
thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of panels of custom LED. It's
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Crazy.
So yeah, just completely nuts. Just the people that I got to meet and work with and do shows with have just been incredible.
Yeah.
Partnered up with a few of those guys now on a couple
Yeah.
of different
Yeah. And I want to
product
get to that
development
too. But
projects. Yeah,
before we get there, I
will.
wanted to ask you, so were you there when it crashed?
Roth.
No. You were
Oh.
around a lot of crashes, weren't you? No, World Stage.
Yes. So
Yeah.
let me skip back one first. I'm going
Sure.
to just say something out here, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to put it out there, and it's
Sure.
going to be what it is.
Cool.
The entire landscape of touring would look completely different in North America right now if the accountant hadn't stolen all the money from Robert.
Interesting. I don't even know that I've ever heard that story.
So
Well,
I won't go into details. Let's just
That's
suffice
fine.
to say that
I'm
somebody
not gonna
had
ask
their
you
hand in the
to.
cookie jar at
I'm
the
sure
height-
I've had that conversation with
at
Robert
the
now.
height of Robert's, at the height of Ari Roth. We had Ari Roth, Source Point Design, Night Moves Transfer. We had the design, we had the gear and the execution, and we had the transportation. We were doing 75% of all the fucking shows, dude. We were
Yeah.
doing all the
Yeah,
tours.
it was big. It was big.
Right. It was massive, and it was growing. And even with the whole Cinderella thing falling apart and all that we still took that gear and put it right out on other stuff.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had other things to do. If that hadn't happened, the landscape of North American touring would look completely different than it does right
true.
now.
Well, I mean, there's so many different events like that if that
Mhm.
hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened, and all of those different types of things. And but yeah, I don't know that I heard exactly that one. I don't remember, you know, because a lot of the times when I had in-depth talks with Robert was well before this podcast, and both he and I were sitting at a bar with freaking martinis in our hands or whatever. And, you know, Robert, the whole conversation with Robert's eyes closed the whole time, you know, talking to me, you know, like I had so many conversations with Robert when I'm positive he was asleep and just answering anyways, you know.
He was a great teacher. He knows
Awesome
more
guy.
about lighting than everybody else will ever forget.
Well, and
He
guess
really
what?
does.
He remembers most of it today, and he's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
almost 70. I think he's 70 this year. And he remembers most, like my memory's shot, and I've never drank or done as much of the bad stuff as Robert
Oh,
and
my
and as most of you have in the industry, right? Like
Oh,
I'm a wimp compared to most of you because I never toured. Like I never lived that lifestyle. I toured in a band for a while, but I never toured for a band or with a band. And but I still can't remember so many things, even from 20, 30 years ago, let alone, you know, the very beginning of my career. So I always appreciate it when guys like you and certainly like Robert's memory is photographic in some
oh, yeah. A
cases,
lot
you
of
know?
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's crazy.
he's a wealth of knowledge. He was a great teacher. He was a great supporter. We gave him 100%, and I will say post my time working for him, he gave me 100%.
Yeah.
He helped us out at East Coast Lighting so much.
Yeah.
Some of these smaller tours he didn't want to deal with.
Yeah.
He would say, "Hey, call these guys. They'll help you out."
You know, and
And
it's
so,
always great, you know, when somebody like Four Wall or PRG or whoever named the Borg, you know, as
yeah,
people love to call them. But when they come in and rescue companies by purchasing them or whatever, you know, it looks beautiful on the surface and stuff. But the thing that I always find that's sad, and you know, I love Jerry Harris. I'm good friends with Jerry Harris, so I'm not knocking anything that he's done or that Four Wall have
mhm.
done. You know, there's loose capital laying around. People are going to buy up companies with it. And if your company shows some glimmer of life in it that we could build upon, you're going to be bought, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you lose the attitude and you lose the character and you lose what made R.A. Roth great to begin with, and you know, production arts, like nobody remembers production arts. I do. You know, I remember
Oh yeah,
sitting at design tables with Steve Terry and John McGraw and okay, what do we need to do to get some product onto this design, you know, and trying to work a way to sell them some gear or whatever. And that was, I remember they were the gold standard production arts. And so when you buy it and a year later the brand disappears, that sucks. It just
yeah,
really, but it's hard to buy all these companies and continue to promote all the brands. Like they even just tried keeping light and sound design as the touring division at PRG, and it was just
yeah,
confusing. So finally they just had to drop all these brand names. Like production arts was going to be the theatrical division and light and sound design was going to be the touring division. Didn't work, you know, so they just had to drop it all and become PRG, you know.
yeah. Well, you
But it's
remember
always a
even in
bummer.
the '80s that was happening, you know, with A1 and Tasco
Yeah,
and Electric Tech and
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
all that stuff coming and going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I had met Peter Clark
Super
over in
Mick.
Europe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Super Mick. I remember
the
Peter.
bloody legend, right?
Yeah, bloody
Um,
legend, that guy. Funny as
I
hell,
had
too.
I had some great experiences with all those guys. That's where I met Dizzy Gosnell.
Oh,
That's where
okay.
I met
Yeah.
Rob Steele. Met
Yeah.
Rob Steele before he came over, before he came to the
Oh,
States. I
wow.
was
Yeah. I think I
was
met him
hanging
right
out in
after he
Europe a
came
lot,
over. Yeah.
hanging out over there a lot, and doing a lot of work over there.
Yeah.
But as far as the
Peter
world stage
Clark.
stuff goes, oh yeah, dude, he's
That guy was a
awesome.
trip. Yeah. Is he still around? Do you know? Like that's a guy I'd
um,
love to have on this podcast, by the way. So if anybody knows
you
Peter
know, I
Clark
don't,
and has
I
contact
don't.
details for him, let me know.
You've had Dizzy
If
on,
he's still
haven't
around.
you?
I've had Dizzy on a couple times. He was just on recently, like
Dizzy
maybe a
probably
month
knows how to
ago.
get a hold of him. Dizzy might
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
a
I should
better.
ask Dizzy. So Sarah, if
Dizzy
you're
spent a lot
listening
of
and
time
not
with him over
napping,
there. Yeah.
if Sarah's listening and not napping right now, please reach out to Dizzy and get information to get
See if we can get
Peter
Peter
Clark.
on.
Get Peter
Oh,
Clark
hell
on.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other one that we're trying to get in touch with is Chipmunk. You know, I'd love to get Chipmunk on the
Oh,
podcast.
jeez.
He last I heard, he's in Australia. He's retired in Australia, and but I don't know if that's still the case or whatever. But at some point, Richard Cadena, who follows the podcast pretty closely, I don't know if you know Rich, but
I do.
Richard's
Loosely.
pretty close.
Around the
Richard's
same
pretty
circle,
close.
yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty close with Chip, so we're trying to get him on. But
Australia. Shout out to Pip Robinson and the boys. You
there you
know.
go. There you go. So back to World Stage. So you were there when it went down, and you know,
Yeah.
I guess some of the questions I have, and I've had most of these answered by some of the people who were in very top management and stuff at the company. But I mean, what was it like? Like, did you know it was coming? Were you looking around going, "Hey, there's
No.
something wrong"? It just happened
No,
quick.
not at
Boom.
all. So the plague hit, and it was like the middle of March. I had like 3 shows going on. I had flown from one show down to Orlando to SAP, which canceled. But
Yeah.
then we ended up taking the rig that we had down there for SAP and basically just taking the ballroom down there at Marriott World and making a giant studio out of it. Redesigned the LED with everything we had on site. Set up a bunch of cameras, did the thing. So they ended up doing it as a webcast,
Remote.
basically,
Yeah.
right? Which some people had experience in at that point, but not a lot. You know, this is second week of March of 2020.
Yeah.
And
That was a very new concept at that point.
right. I get that show. That show's under control. Great. I need to go up to Nashville and check on the boys up there. We have something going on at Opryland. Get up there, and I'm just in time to see Don Felder was the entertainment. And so got to see Felder, and it was awesome. God, he was rocked. He was so good that night. Voice was great. Playing was great. Band was tight. I'm just like standing in the back of the room with a couple of the other guys, and I'm just going, yes.
That's
yes.
cool. Yeah.
So the next morning, I get a call from my boss at World Stage, and he's like, hey, something's going on. We're not sure. Stay by your phone. I'm like, okay. So my buddy Brian Beck, who I got the can and the Reed Mueller box from, we drive back to Atlanta the next day.
Your credit card's not bouncing for gas or anything yet, though, is it?
No.
Okay, good.
And that was on a Thursday. And that Friday, Michael calls me and he says, we just laid off like 250 people.
Oof.
He said, we're putting you on half salary for whatever, month or 2 months or whatever it was. And I'm like, okay. Because all of a sudden, you know, everybody's calendars are just disappearing. Yeah. All the shows are canceling. Everyone, all these mandates that are going out, and everybody just canceled. Yeah. And so I sat there we would do our weekly meetings, you know, a couple of days a week. We would get online and hang out, and then it
talk about all the shit you should be doing but can't.
Yeah. Or what can we try to do? How can we spin up some virtual studios? And at that point, they about 6 to 8 weeks into the half salary thing, I get a call and I was told I'm being furloughed. You're being furloughed. We're going to cover your half of the insurance, so you stay insured through this. Blah blah blah. Okay, great. And then they internally they were still trying to spin up one in California and one in New York, some of these virtual studios, because we had all the equipment, right? You've got all the LED, you've got all the cameras, you've got all the technology.
Yeah, you guys were well positioned to do something.
All the people, that's 100%, right?
Yeah.
So they got those set up and then started to do product development, software development for a lot of these, because there weren't a lot of streaming platforms to use at that time.
Right. Yeah.
Right now there's a billion of them.
Yeah.
But at the time there weren't that many. So the guys who were left there were holding it, and that went on. My furlough went on until like February of 21, when I finally got a call and said, "Hey, we're
done. Yeah, you're on your own there, tough guy."
The whole thing was pretty much done at that point.
Yeah.
Pretty much at that point, it wasn't much longer before the rest of it imploded.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's amazing though. Like you'd think that was one that's too big to fail, you know, but debt is a killer. Debt's a killer.
I think we had a lot. 2020 was already going to be a banger year. And I'm pretty sure sales wise, if you talk to the guys who are running the sales teams, we were probably in Q1 alone, we were already 30% over the previous year.
Wow.
I mean, we just came out of the gates just
Killing it.
storming.
Yeah.
Like I could see it adding 15 to 20 million to the bottom line over the course of the year,
Wow.
right? Like you're just really making a huge jump. And I think they had invested in the technology that was going to be needed to get that done. And so a lot of that CapEx went out at the first of the year.
Yeah.
And so, there wasn't that money hanging around. I don't know any of the details of any of that
Yeah.
stuff. It'd be pure
Yeah. No,
speculation if
I
I
mean,
did said anything else.
usually when a company that size crashes, it's dead, and I mean, some of the companies in our industry, and I won't mention any names, but some of these companies are operating on between, 400 or 500 million and $1 billion in debt. And so when shit goes bad, like it did in 2009 or 8 or whatever, and it did again during COVID, and you're carrying that debt load, something has to give. And usually you either find a buyer with very deep and patient pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, they'll put all that capital, the $1 billion that you need, they'll put that in play and be very patient, waiting until COVID's over and not pulling any triggers to implode the company along the way. Or something has to give. Like it's just, banks aren't going to sit patiently usually. Like banks will weigh A versus B, and if A is a better choice, they launch you.
The way it was explained to me is, and this makes a lot of sense, if you and me go to the bank and we borrow $10 million
that's
and
our
we don't
problem.
pay it back, we're in deep duty. If we
Well,
go
that's
to the
our
bank and
problem.
borrow $100 million
That's their problem.
and don't pay it back, the bank's
That's
in
their
deep
problem.
duty.
Yeah, exactly.
And they will restructure whatever they need to restructure. They'll write off, they'll do whatever they do.
Yeah.
And that's how those larger organizations do
I know a very particular set of talks that happened, and let's call it, a couple $100 million. And they sat at the table with the bank and they said, the bank was putting pressure on them. And they said, look, if you don't pull this pressure off of me, I'm going to bankrupt this fucking company and then you're screwed. And so, the bank had to basically back off or they were going to hit the nuclear button, and at that point it was over. So, it's a challenge in our industry because there is a lot of capital being injected into our industry and there's a lot of debt being taken on by our industry. And that's going to become even more prevalent, I think, as interest rates drop and there's more money being put in play and all of those things. And, it's great as long as things are going as they are today. But, when things aren't going as well as they are today and the pressure comes back again and banks, like I heard, banks were pulling notes on people that had their houses on the line, small businesses in our industry. And I know many of them because I was consulting with many of these companies, helping them, to stay in business as much as I could, just because I know a lot of people and I know where all the bodies are buried in the industry and stuff. And, it wasn't because they were missing loan payments usually. It was because of covenants built into these agreements that they had with their banks. And it's these covenants are usually the leverage that the bank pulls out to put you out of business or to force you to start selling off all your gear or whatever. And they're the first and only ones that get paid. Nobody else gets paid in those situations. So it's brutal. It's just brutal.
It is. It is. And it was such a shame, man. I mean, it was funny. We used to joke because I worked out of the Nashville was a sales office, right?
Yeah.
And so there was like 4 of us up there. And so we called ourselves the Middle Coast because you always got the New York guys, the old Sharp Weisberg guys are always like, that's West Coast guys and the West Coast guys, the old video apps guys. I love working with both teams.
Yeah.
Right. It's 2 completely different business models, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like literally.
We called ourselves the Middle Coast. We called ourselves the Middle Coast.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. If it were an election, you'd be the independents.
Yeah. I miss it. It's awful, man. We had such like I said, I got exposed to a lot of really great people,
Yeah.
technology, uh, processes and procedures. It just,
Oh yeah,
it crushed me.
that's
It
the
crushed
cool
me.
thing about getting involved in when you're a small business guy like you were
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
am. When you get exposed to some of those big companies, I think you learn a lot about um, methods and processes that you would never get access to as a small business. Some of which are really brilliant, and some of which you're going, man, why are these people doing this stuff? They're losing so much money because as a small business, you operate, and you and I both
Oh
come from
yeah,
racing and it's like a race car compared to a school bus driving on the same racetrack. Things happen a lot more quickly in the race car, so you can go out of business more quickly, you can get things done more quickly. And as a result, you just have to be smarter with how you're using that power, how you're laying the
yeah,
power down on the track, right? Versus a school bus, you don't have much power and it takes forever to turn the thing and all of that. So you're moving more slowly and gracefully perhaps, but much less efficiently. And things don't happen as quickly. So, it's a very slow burning death as opposed to
yeah,
boom, you're dead, And but anyways, but it's interesting because you met your future business partners, right?
yeah. So I have a couple of different projects going on right now. My day job, one of my day jobs, is I have Source Point Collective, and yes, I did call Robert and ask. That's myself, Bob Foley, Josh Johnson, and John Orchard.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know Orca
Yeah,
from
of
the old
course.
days.
Yeah.
And so we do technical direction and project management. We do some production design. Still, John is Orchard is really active in doing a lot of the production design stuff that we're doing. But mostly we're doing show management kind of
Yeah.
things, technical direction, stuff like that. And then
So who are
I
your
have,
clients for that business?
so for that, agencies, right?
Okay.
So agencies call us. I'm working for Invent this next week, INVNT, as one of the TDs on a show that they have coming up here out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So we'll be out doing that starting tomorrow. But we have so agencies call us up to come in and help them project manage.
Cool. Yeah.
We and producers call us, and we do have two clients that we work directly with.
Yeah.
That we've had guys that work with us bring to the table. So we kind of almost act as producers for some of those
So
smaller shows like that.
is that like a real company or is that like a collective?
Well, it is. I mean, it's all under one umbrella. The four of us
Yeah.
are equal partners in the company, and we take on all the responsibilities and the task as a group.
Okay.
Which is actually kind of a selling point for that because now you have multiple sets of eyes on your project all the time.
Of course. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we're always working together to streamline those processes and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
The
But
downside is you have to get along,
oh, dude,
which
we've
could
all
be
known
looked
each
at as
other
the
for
upside, but
yeah. Orchard and I have known each other for 30 plus years, and then
yeah.
Mark Rabinowitz hooked me up with Foley. I needed an LD for something, and I called Mark because I was down in Orlando. You know Mark. I know
Of
you
course.
know
Yep.
Mark.
Hmm.
And of course, Mark is like Christopher Walken. If you say something that Mark said, you have to say it the way he said it. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you piece of shit, call this guy Bob Foley. He's
Yeah.
a good guy. You'll love him.
That's
So I
funny.
called Foley, and then I met Josh through Foley, and so we've all been together for 20 plus years, a couple of
That's
decades,
cool. Yeah. That's cool.
and then the other stuff we have going on is we have Future FUTR and Better BETR, and these are two product development companies that I'm partnered with Josh Perlman and Jason Mullaney from World Stage,
Okay.
and so we are. The Better project is the one that's kind of got all the heat right now. And what we've done is we've just really come up with a very slick, modern, um, using some AI driven capabilities, breakout in the box, right? More or less.
Yeah.
Except our breakout in the box isn't the size of a refrigerator or a lectern or a 20 space rack. It's the size of a 4 space rack unit.
Yeah.
So we demoed the big kit last summer. We did demos for the ECS, the Event Control System, the ECS Light Kit. We did about a month ago out in Vegas. We've had some investors step in and give us some money to go into production. So we're building the first 25 units of the ECS Light Kit,
Okay.
which has an incredible range of capabilities in a very small, powerful package, easy to deploy, consistency of equipment across the board for your small meetings and things like that. These, personally, I mean, we call it breakout in the box, but to me, I think this thing would be incredible for um, trade show booths because spaces, it's such a premium all the time.
Yeah.
And when you can control audio, video, and lighting out of one small unit and you can access it remotely and you can update it remotely.
That's
We put
cool.
5G modems in all these things so we have access to them from anywhere all the time.
Yeah.
So you're not relying on house internet and things like that.
So is the business model to rent those or to sell them to AV companies?
The business model is to rent them,
Okay.
right?
So you're going to own
what
all
we
the
wanna do-
inventory.
No. Let's clarify inventory.
Yeah.
The control system that we have built, the ECS kits, yes, we will own those. We will
Right.
not own
That's what I meant by
projectors,
inventory. Yeah.
screens, displays,
Right.
drape, staging,
Yeah.
all that. Speakers.
No, I was
none.
just curious if the business model was a manufacture and distribute model or a manufacture and hold model. And it's manufacture
we're
and
holding.
hold. Yeah.
We're holding.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
have had some interest from a couple production companies to do long-term lease deals for like
Yeah.
75 to
Like the
100
Verilight
units.
model. Verilight model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is definitely conversations that can be had
Yeah. Interesting.
as we're going.
Yeah.
We're having a couple of those now.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate. But
So 3 smart partners or 4, is it 4 total or 3 in that business?
it's 3.
Okay.
It's 3.
So 3 really
Yeah.
smart people, and I guess you divide and conquer. So do you
Well,
have,
2 really smart guys and me
you.
hanging out.
I knew that was coming, but
So
do you have to get involved in the investor side of things at all? Like, is that an everyone gets involved, or is one
yes,
partner
everybody,
dealing with?
we're all out there trying to money in.
Because that's
we're
a
all
pain
out
in the
there
ass, isn't it?
raising awareness. You know it is, but I found some enjoyment in it because when we did those demos a few weeks ago and the look on the people's faces, these are all seasoned
Yeah.
veterans. They all know what they're looking at. And when they walk in the room and go, holy shit,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And they've seen what we've been able to do with technology
Yeah.
and shrink it. Literally, honey, I shrunk the kit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what we kind of joke around with. It is game-changing things come around generationally, and I honestly believe that this is one of them.
Yeah.
It is a solution
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
desperately needed.
Well, I watched I watched a couple of reels that were on I don't even remember where, your website or LinkedIn or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely looks interesting. It's an interesting product. I had talked with I think I talked with Josh at one point about what he was doing early on, like a year ago,
Mhm.
and it definitely sounds interesting. Like that whole AV industry side of things seems to be continually growing. And I had a guy on a couple weeks ago with a really cool bit of technology too. I forget what it's called, or else I'd tell you right now. But it had to do with Wi-Fi audio, getting around all of like his challenge was all of the budget at a keynote address, for example, was being
Mhm.
spent on these headsets for translation was one of the big things. And
Oh yeah.
so with their system, all you have to do is you go to a website, which, they got their code up, and you just scan the code and go to the website. And once you're on the website, you basically can just pick a language. And so through your headphones on your iPhone, and you don't have to download an app, and you don't have to sign up for anything and all of that stuff, right? So, and it can be branded to whatever that keynote is or that convention is or whatever. And so you just go to this website and you can either pick a language or a feed. It could be different feeds of different information, whether you're an engineer or a tech or a this or a that or whatever. and really super cool software. And I mean, it's like I think it's a one rack space unit for every four channels. So four languages, four feeds, four whatever.
Oh my God.
Really inexpensive to use.
Who was your guest?
Sebastian, and don't ask me his last name. He's French
Okay, no,
Canadian.
I'll go back and I'll find it. And look.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
if you want me to connect you, I can connect you directly to Sebastian. Super smart guy, really very well positioned product. Like it's not going
Love
to
it.
change the earth, but it is going to change how some people do some of these things because like he said, you know, he was spending at some of these things, he was spending 75 grand for headsets and then having three people use them, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like it's because you don't know how many people are going to need translation, and if only three people use it, you've wasted $74,000. You know, so
This sounds like just the thing we need for the press room on this show we were doing because
probably,
it's got to all be multi-language,
yeah, probably.
multilingual. Oh gosh.
And he gave me some
No.
of the pricing, and it's very reasonable considering you know what these people are spending today. It's incredibly reasonable. So yeah, you should definitely look into it. It's cool, but
One of the big driving factor. One second. One of the big driving factors on this is, coming out of the pandemic, we've had labor issues, right?
yeah,
Like it's hard to find. A lot of people left the industry,
yeah, yeah,
and it's hard to find if you've got a show that has 50 breakout rooms
yeah.
or more. Finding 50 qualified people is hard,
It's tough. Yeah,
and you can't do it. So taking some of that burden out and making it more presenter focused platform,
yeah,
make it easier to plug and play for them,
yeah.
right? So we're out there.
It makes so much sense.
You've got an iPad, you've got a dashboard up that's monitoring the health of all the systems that you're responsible for.
Yeah,
You can see what's happening all the time.
that's
So
cool.
you've got a floor, your more effective use of labor with like a floor manager, couple of floaters, floor manager, couple of floaters.
Yeah,
And you're able to, and then you have a guy down in master control watching all the systems,
that's
watching all the
cool.
records, how it all works. It's a
And
great solution.
you have
Yeah.
IP on this, I would expect.
Some,
Yeah,
yeah.
some,
A little bit,
some, some.
some.
I mean, some of it.
Just told me to be careful.
Yeah. All right. Well, we won't go too far into it then. But no, I mean, it's exciting. Like to me,
It
you
is.
know,
It's so
sensible
exciting, dude.
solutions for big, dumb problems that have never been addressed makes a lot of sense. And it's why I got so like, I remember I was looking at this podcast with Sebastian and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be so boring. It looks like such a boring technology. I'm not interested in this audio thing for AV or for, you know, keynote presentations and stuff. And I was blown away by it. I was like, it's the genius is in its simplicity is really what it
Yeah,
comes down to.
it
And
really is.
I love solutions like that. Really, really. And guess what? You and I both find a lot of those solutions or dream a lot of them up based on motorsports. You know, motorsports is always looking for easier, less expensive solutions to complicated problems, right? And the people remind me of our industry very much. You know, they're very passionate. They're usually underpaid. And you know, they do this because they love it and it's a lifestyle and it's my passion and it's all of those things. And so I don't think we're done with the lighting and sound stuff yet though, so we can't get into racing yet. Racing is our reward for finishing all the boring
Racing is
stuff.
I was going to say, I was going to ask you what your favorite racing saying is.
Um I don't know. I don't have any favorites. My favorite racing saying is, "Yep, your bill is paid. Don't worry, you don't owe us anything." You know, at the end of a
That's the
weekend.
West- that's what
Yeah,
you want to hear.
yeah,
Mine
your bill is
is
zero. Perfect.
when I first started racing Atlantic, the guy told me, he goes, speed is how fast you hit the wall, torque is how hard you hit the wall.
That is awesome. I love that one, and I'll never remember it. I'll never remember it, but
Anyway,
that is awesome.
back to the
Yeah.
lighting stuff, man. Back to
Yeah.
the lighting stuff.
No,
So
I mean,
cool.
congratulations on this business and
Thank
good
you.
luck with it. I mean,
Thank you.
you're still basically in startup mode and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exciting, scary, frustrating, challenging, fun. You know, it's all of those things wrapped into one.
I call it excitingly terrified.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because dude, at 60, I'm still learning.
Yeah, me too.
I'm still grinding.
Me too. Yeah,
I still get up every day and grind, right? And
me
I
too.
love it. I
And
love what
can't
I
wait.
do.
Can't
I
wait to
love
get
the
up and
people I
grind.
work with, and
Yeah.
I've been so looking forward to this,
Uh-oh.
right? It's like
I
so
hate
much
to
fun.
disappoint you. Yeah.
No, dude,
Yeah.
I'm having this is awesome.
Yeah. No,
But
I
yeah,
I
I
I
feel
love
like I'm in
talking
my
about this
prime.
stuff. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. You know, we skipped over a lot of your stories because I actually got some little hint pointers here on some of your stories. So, tell me the one about gold toenails because I need to know this one. It just sounds like
Oh,
a story I need
Jesus.
to hear.
I'll
Yeah.
try to make this quick.
Yeah. It's all
So
right. We got
Hank
time.
Jr., we're out with Hank Jr. and I committed the cardinal sin of falling asleep
Ah, boy.
in the
Don't
front
do
lounge.
that. Duck, what are you doing?
Well, we only had a front lounge. We did. Eddie Pleasant had the back lounge. That was his office, his bed.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we had the bunks in the front lounge for the team.
Yeah.
I fell asleep, and of course, we stop at a truck. We're on like a 2 day drive,
Yeah.
and we stop at a truck stop. I've got long hair. I get off the bus. I'm not even paying attention. I've got one eye open, still probably feeling the effects of all the
Yeah.
stuff.
Gack. Yeah.
Yeah, all the booze and everything,
Etc.
dude. That was a heavy crew bus rider that would get destroyed every night.
Oh, really? That's
Oh
funny.
yeah, oh yeah. We were pros, and I go walking in this truck stop. My long hair. I've got probably a tank top and some shorts and flip flops on, and I'm getting all these guys are like, "Hey, sweetie," blah blah blah, and I'm like, I thought they were just, I thought
Where
it
were
was a
you?
whole
What
tournament.
state?
I don't even remember where we were.
Oh,
We were just at
okay.
a Union 76,
Okay. Yeah.
back when they had the restaurants, actual
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
restaurants out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a whole turn the page moment, Bob Seger turn the page moment. Is that a woman or a man?
Yeah.
They're just giving me shit. So I just keep walking, right? And I sit down, and it's when I sit down with Kirk and Kirk Marks, who we mentioned before, and I sit down with them, and I look down and I see that my toenails are all painted.
They did that.
And it didn't dawn on me till years later that where the did any of these people have nail polish on a
Yeah,
tour
that's
bus?
true. That's true. Yeah.
So I look at Kirk and I'm like, who the fuck did this to me? He goes, I am not telling you the set carpenter's name.
That's hilarious.
And it was a guy named Fred Coates.
Yeah.
Fred Coates. And so fast forward about 2 weeks, we're playing the state fair down there in Sedalia, Missouri. And you're on this big stage in the middle of the racetrack. And I knew it was time to get Fred back. And
Yeah.
so I had gone, there was a bunch of like Missouri State Patrol guys all hanging around, and we're just sitting there all shooting the shit with them and whatnot. And I said, hey, you guys want to help me pull a joke? And they're
Yeah.
like, yes. And I'm like, great. So I recruit like four of them. And these guys are like, just,
Big. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
jacked, right? And so I go and I get a bunch of T-shirts and stuff for them and just swag them down, right?
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing, Fred is sitting on a road case with a bunch of he's got nothing on but like some running shorts and a fanny pack.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to get out of control, so I sent Bud Phillips, who's a guitar tech. I said, "Go tell Fred that there's some cops looking for him, and tell him you'll hold his fanny pack," because I didn't know if Fred had anything on him or whatever, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want the joke
You
to
didn't
take a
want it
left
turning
turn.
into a real
Right.
arrest.
I didn't want it turning into a thing.
Yeah.
So what I told the cops was, I said, tell Fred that because I know Fred had hooked up with the girls in Oklahoma like 3 days ago, 4 days ago.
Yeah.
And
As you
so I
do.
said, tell him you want to talk to him about some statutory thing out of Oklahoma City. And so these cops go over and they pick Fred up. And Fred is a small, 80 pounds soaking wet in a burlap bag, right?
Yeah.
He's not a big guy. And these guys pick him up. And he's just sitting there with his feet dangling. And he's like, Kurt, help me, somebody help me. And they just start parading him all around backstage, all out the
At what
front of
point did he
house.
realize it was a joke?
When they went to go put him in the car, and one of the other cops steps up and he goes, boy, don't you need to be this tall to ride in a Missouri State Patrol car?
That's
And
funny.
they turn him around. His feet never hit the ground the whole time. They turn him around and we're all standing there and I'm going, I got you, mother. Got you.
That's a good one.
My toenails.
That's a good one. That's a damn good one.
Oh, oh my God.
It's
That
funny
brings
because,
back some memories.
again, I never got the opportunity to do that on the road with lighting people. Although some of my employees and stuff, like every once in a while, we'd have some fun
Mhm.
if we were in a hotel somewhere. But um, playing in bands when I was like in my late teens, 18, 19, 17, touring in Western Canada in really junky little towns with, terrible places. But we did all those same things, some really, really bad practical jokes were played. And it was always so much fun. But, you had to be careful how far you pushed it because there's going to
Right.
be a response
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's going to
Yeah.
go
That
further. And next thing you
fortunately,
know, yeah.
fortunately that capped it. We
Oh,
were
did it
one to
really?
one. We were even. We were good.
Yeah. You shook hands and said, okay, we're done.
Oh yeah. Oh dude,
Yeah.
he was just like he was
That's
so
funny.
relieved. He was so
That's
relieved.
that's hilarious. So there's a couple other good ones here that I've got. Apparently you were like deported at some point or almost deported or something. Deportation is the code word I got here. What's that about? Maybe
Oh,
was this in
there's a
Czech?
couple of those. Oh,
There's a couple of
Czechoslovakia.
those. There's a
Oh,
couple of those.
so
That's pretty funny, right there. That's a pretty funny
before
statement. There's a
before the
couple
wall
of
came
those.
down, before the wall came down, uh, doing a gig for Peter.
Yeah.
Right, I was working not directly, but kind of indirectly for Clark. I was over in Europe before the wall came down, and you used to have to sneak over into like Czechoslovakia and Bulgaria. You used to have to sneak over there and play
Yeah.
daytime shows, and then haul ass back across the border before nightfall.
Right.
Right. The same thing in Germany, right? You try to get into East Berlin and go do some shows, and
That's
then hop
nutty.
back across.
What if you got
It was
caught?
we did,
Oh,
we
Jesus.
did, and so we're coming back down these back roads, and what you've got these guys that don't speak, I mean, speak no English, and you've got to hope somebody on your team, somebody in the band or somebody in the crew, and this was with a German metal band called Victory,
Okay.
right? And we had snuck over. We were in two vans, one with like four of us crew guys and some backline in the band and the other. And so we hauled ass over, did like this noon show in the basement of basically the basement of a whorehouse there
Yeah.
in just outside of Prague. And we're hauling ass back, and we get blipped on one of these little back roads. And did you ever see Stripes? You remember the movie
Yeah. Yeah.
Stripes?
Yeah. Of course.
Those two guys with the little guard
Yeah.
shack and the little thing that came down.
No
That's
way.
exactly what it was. Yeah,
Wow.
that's exactly. And all it is a shakedown, right? But this happened to be a Friday,
Yeah.
and so
They
this
needed weekend cash.
they needed something, and so they're like, one of the guys on the crew spoke enough, whatever, to communicate with these guys. So we don't have any money. I
Yeah.
mean, I've got a fistful of Deutschmarks and some lira and some, whatever pounds, that I've got floating around in my duffel bag, but I don't really have got what $50 on me total, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not a lot of money, and so you can't call anybody in London because it's like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. on a Friday night. They're gone. This is
Yeah.
way before pagers and cell phones
Yeah.
and any
Yeah.
of that,
God, it's
and
hard to
so
remember that, isn't it? Like when you actually had to catch people while they were in their office.
so they didn't think this through, right? So
Yeah.
now they can either let us go, but the nearest town is like another 30 clicks back the other way.
Yeah.
So they're not going to take us there because then they won't get their money. But they didn't think it through because now they got to house us and feed us for the weekend
Oh boy.
until somebody opens on Monday. And so we end up going to this guy's mom's house,
Who the guard
one of the guards. There's two of them.
takes you to
And
his
they got
mom's
guns,
house?
and we go to their mom's house, which is like a click down the road, and that's where we hung out for the weekend.
You're kidding me.
Oh, dude, it was, I keep telling you, it was way more like Mayberry than Midnight Express, right?
That
This
is
was like
insane.
the craziest thing. And of course, come Monday, they get a hold of somebody at the label or at the management office, and the next thing you know, there's somebody driving over It
A
took
few
about a day to
$100
get
or
it
something.
all.
How
I,
much was
I
it?
don't, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
That is
But we gave him.
hilarious. The
I remember
guard
giving
takes you
up
to
one of
his
my.
mom's house,
Yeah,
basically holding you for ransom.
yeah, yeah. That was
Isn't
cool.
that
So,
crazy?
and I ended. I think I remember giving, like, I had a denim jacket from another tour that I gave one of the guys.
Yeah,
But they were
that's
so cool. I mean,
hilarious.
they were really cool. There wasn't. We probably could have just gotten in the car and driven off, and they wouldn't have done shit.
Yeah.
But who wanted to take that chance, right?
Yeah, but plus you were eating
Nobody.
and probably having a
Oh
good
yeah,
time, probably
yeah,
drinking
yeah,
vodka with these guys or something,
yeah. And the band would just sit around and play music all day. They
That's
bust out a couple of the
hilarious.
acoustics
Oh,
and
the
play, and
band
it
was
was
with you
just.
too for this whole thing.
Oh yeah, they kept
Oh
us all, like
God.
nine of us total, 9 or 10 of us.
That is nuts.
That's why I
All
said
at
they
his
didn't
mom's
think this
house.
through. Yeah, that's what they didn't think. We're all sleeping on the floor, sleeping on
That's
a couch, in a chair,
insane.
whatever. A couple of
That
us
is
sleeping in the
nuts.
van, sleeping out in the van.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny. But after lunch on Monday, we were rolling back across the
Ah,
border, into
yeah.
Germany there.
Okay,
But
so
yeah,
there's
just.
there's one called Gummy Bears and Jolt Cola, which who hasn't tried
Oh
that
my
one?
God, dude. Robert McTeague, me and Big House, when we were doing the satellites thing,
Okay.
we were driving around the country in that 15-foot rider van, van front,
Oh my
cube on the
God.
back,
Yeah.
and Steve Dunaway, not Steve Dunaway, I'm sorry, Steve Winstead, and that we were living on that. We were living on Coke and gummy bears and Jolt Cola, and you put all the gummy bears up in the dashboard and let them all melt, so they just come out of the sheet and then throw them in the cooler.
Yeah.
Jolt Cola,
Yeah.
and we would take three Marshall cabinets in the road cases and turn them over as the first part of the truck pack, and you had that little sliding door that you could go to the back,
Yeah.
and we'd rig up a hammock in there over those cases. Then you put the drum cases behind it, so you had a little wall.
Yeah.
And so we had a little hammock back there. So you had two people up in the front, and one of us was always in the
Oh,
hammock,
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
driving around the country.
Yeah, we did that except with a converted school bus where the back half
Oh,
of the
yeah, the
school
bus.
bus
Yeah.
was the gear and the front half was where you sat. And then again, you'd rig up beds somehow on top of all the gear in the back of the bus. But oh, I thought you were going to
Oh,
say like
dude.
is it gummy bears that if you drop them in Coke, you can like the Coke blows up or something? What is it that you put in Coke and it blows up? I forget. Or is it Alka-Seltzer or something? I don't know. I thought there was something to
Is
do
that
with gummy
Mentos?
bears and
Is
Coke
that
or something.
Mentos or whatever
Mentos, that
the?
might be it. Yeah, that might be
Yeah,
it.
no, the gummy bears. But you'll strip the color out of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, neither of those
But
things
that,
are very good, dietary items, I don't think.
oh, man,
Jolt Cola, I
hey,
remember that. That was only around for a little while, but it was pretty
all the
solid.
sugar and twice the caffeine. That's what
Yeah,
it said on the can. It was
yeah.
like 80 grams of sugar. God knows
It
how
was
many grams of
insane.
caffeine.
It was insane.
Jesus.
Just imagine what
We got,
that was doing to our hearts, but we were
but
young enough to recover.
we were playing all these gigs in these small towns, a lot of colleges, and just these. It was all bar gigs when you weren't opening for a national act. So
Yeah,
we literally got to see America, man.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
all of it,
yeah,
like all of it. It was so
yeah. That was
to
me too,
watch
but
the
just
whole
Western
world.
Canada. Like
Yeah.
Western Canada, I saw every dumpy little town. And, when you were saying with your pink toenails, hey, sugar, uh, every time we'd walk into the tavern that we were going to be playing in for the next week, you'd walk in and you're in like 2-day old leather pants and hair down to the middle of your back and stuff, right? And it never failed. There's a table of rednecks and they just look at you and go, hey, faggots. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
man, we're gonna have to fight, and we're starting to look for bottles or chairs or something that we can use to fight these guys off, right? But yeah,
And we got into a few. We got into a few.
yeah, it happened.
We weren't
Well,
afraid to get scrappy.
yeah, I mean, hair. I think when we got into the probably in the 80s, like in the mid 80s, perhaps, maybe even the early 80s. Um, it was just like this thing. Like if you had long hair, people who didn't called you faggots, and I was like, but
All the time.
but your girlfriend
All the
likes me
time.
more than you. How can I be a faggot?
Right?
Like what are you saying to me? Just
It
crazy
was so
stuff.
crazy. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, dude. We got all that stuff. We got all that stuff. Most of the time you just keep walking. like whatever, dude.
That's
But
usually
there,
what happened.
we definitely got in some scraps occasionally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's you're in a bad way if you've got two or three rednecks or whoever it is, townies up north. I think is what they call them. But you get two or three of those guys, and they're picking on one of you or two of you.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, when the rest of the squad finds out, you've got a
Yeah.
dozen big fucking roadies
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
just rip you to shreds.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always somebody that's got your back, and so, we're going to have to venture over to racing here. So I'm warning everyone who's listening, if you hate my talks on racing, you're about to hate this one because Duck and I are going to start talking about racing. So I think you have been into it a lot longer than me. So I'll give you my short history of racing.
Okay.
I had sports cars, and they were starting to get a little faster and a little more elaborate. And so I got to a point where I was like, hey, I don't want to have a problem driving on a local street. So I don't want to drive fast and stupid on local roads in South Florida. So I'm just going to start doing these, HPDEs, the high performance driving events, right? And there's so many different clubs in Florida, and I'm sure at Road Atlanta and Roebling Road, where I've been a bunch of times as well. Yeah. And you guys have some tracks around there, but so in South Florida, Homestead, Palm Beach, which is now closed, we used to always have places that we could go, and it was pretty cheap. And I would go and take my sports car and just get better and better at it. And then I bought a NASCAR and converted it over to road racing and took out half the roll cage and put another seat in. So I labeled it all up for my company. We wrapped it in my company logos and stuff. And actually what I did is I went to 5 of our suppliers. I got a price for wrapping this NASCAR. It was $2,500. I went to 5 suppliers and said $500 to put your logo on my NASCAR. And they were like, hell yeah. So I put like 5 logos on the NASCAR. It paid for the wrap. And I would just use it to take customers out for a few laps, and just scare the shit out of them. And so now my son was like 6, and he'd go to the track with me, and I could take him for a lap or two every once in a while. They'd let me, if there was nobody else on the track or whatever, they'd let me take him out for a few laps. And he loved it. Like, he loved the smell of exhaust. He loved the smell of racing fuel. He loved brakes. Like, he just loved the whole experience, right? So he kept bugging me, Dad, I want to drive something. I want to drive something. And at Palm Beach, there's a go-kart track right attached to it next door. And so we went over there, and they wouldn't let him on the rental carts because he was only 6. But they would let him on a professional kart as long as he hired a coach to do lead follow with him. And the dog's attacking.
Yeah.
Killer.
So
sit down, killer. So we put him out with a, don't worry about the background noise, by the way. We put him out with a coach to do these lead follow things. And he did a couple sessions, and that was it. He was hooked. Like, since that moment, he's never wanted to do anything else in his whole life except race. And so my racing stopped, which wasn't racing. It was just driving fast. It was never wheel to wheel. Like, I got an SCCA license, but I've never used it. I've never actually joined a race and gone out and started a race and all of those things. I've just done high performance things or high speed driving events. And so, he started in karting, and it started as just, we'll go to Palm Beach and you can just drive some laps and have some fun. And then they had a club race. They convinced us to do it. He was hooked. And, so then we joined one of the Florida series. It was called Florida Pro Kart something or other.
Okay.
And on and on. Next thing you know, we're racing nationally, internationally. He did karts for about, 9 years, and then got into cars at 15. And actually, Roebling Road was the first track he did. We booked it privately for a couple of days, and we bought a Formula 4 and went up there with it for a few days and got it prepped and got him fitted into the seat and all of the different stuff. And he went out and did 2 days on the track, and yeah, so
that's a great track to learn on.
He hated it. He still hates it. You know, it's
It's a good place to learn because it's flat, it's wide, and there's mega runoff,
yeah.
right? Like the only thing I have ever hit up there was a pig running across a track in the middle of a race.
Oh, that's a bit weird.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's a good place to learn.
Yeah. Well, and it's inexpensive to rent it on,
Oh yeah,
compared to other tracks. You can rent that track for, depending on what's going on, like, 1,500, $2,000 a day, something like that. So if you get one or
Yeah.
two other drivers to share it with you, it's not
oh
expensive
yeah,
at all.
100%.
And yeah, so his career has just gone on from there, and he's done a few different Formula Series along the way, and spent 2 years or a year and a half in England racing over there, and now he's doing mostly coaching because at the end of last season, basically, I pulled his funding and said, "Hey, you're fully sponsored by somebody else now if you want to keep going." And he's a very good driver. He's won a lot
Right.
of races, but you can't compete anymore. Like the money is just so ridiculous. So
It's yeah. The other one is how do you make a small fortune in racing?
yeah,
Start
yeah,
with
I
the big
know.
one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gotten like at what he's doing. The next level is one step under Indy, one step under Formula One, and we're talking about several $1 million a season to race those right now. And it's not like Mercedes or McLaren just go, "Hey kid, you're real good. We like you. Come and race for us," because they can get paid seats in those cars. They don't need to pay people
Yep.
or to give them away.
So
And
hard.
it's really hard right now. But the problem is it's watering down the talent in those big league series. And it's happening in a lot of the GT series too. The what do they call them? Tin tops, the cars with doors and stuff.
Yep.
Uh,
The GT cars. Yeah.
yeah. So he's done a bit of that. He's done some Miata stuff. He's done all that kind of stuff. But I haven't been in a race car in a long time myself. So how'd you get going? Was it a dad and son thing or?
No, it was actually a friend and his dad,
Oh,
Derek and Gordon Stennis, got me hooked. Gordon, Derek's dad, Derek was my friend in high school. His dad ran a 65 Shelby GT350
oh,
with the
fun.
SVRA and HSR. And so we were always at Road Atlanta, especially for the Walter Mitty, but we were always at Road Atlanta, doing that. And then when we got of age, we could drive.
Yeah.
Um,
What was
I
of age
just,
back then though?
16.
Because now, I mean, it's like 13-year-olds can
Oh
get in
yeah.
cars. It's crazy now because of the money,
It,
None of these organizations are turning away from that cash.
no, no.
Yeah.
So I just renewed my SCCA membership, just renewed. I think this is year 30
Yeah.
for the
Wow.
SCCA.
That's wild.
Ran Atlantics for a while. Started with an RT5, then an RT41. Then my last one was a Swift 008. Um, you still had to find them and grind them. There was none of this paddle shifting crap.
So, yeah.
You had to actually match RPMs and do stuff. Um,
Yeah,
but you learn so much, changing
Jeremy
gear
just,
sets, all that stuff.
yeah, Jeremy
Yeah,
just did a bunch of F1600 stuff and same thing,
yeah.
he had never driven a stick in a street car or a race car. And somebody
No
threw him
way.
into a Formula Atlantic, I think, and then said, "Hey, we want you to run the F1600 series in England."
Yeah.
And
Oh, hell yeah.
and so he did it, and H pattern had no trouble at all. Like he stalled it a couple times in the very beginning, but not in any races or anything. And his big problem is he's 6'4". So I don't know if you've ever been in an F1600 car; they're not very big, and
So
his
the
knees are
Atlantics,
bashing against
yeah,
the top of the cockpit.
I had to make a lot of adjustments to get into the Atlantic because I'm wide.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Wide
the
is a
last,
problem too in
yeah, the
some of those
last car
cars.
was an 83 Van Diemen Formula Ford.
Okay,
Um, or now it's a Club Ford because it only runs regionally. Don't run
yeah,
the nationals with it. But um, that was much more forgiving in the comfort department.
yeah,
But yeah, dude, here in Atlanta, we're lucky because we got Road Atlanta, you got Roebling Road, Savannah, like you said.
yeah.
Carolina Motorsports Park in Kershaw is only a couple hour tow.
Yeah, we did
Charlotte's
the
only a 5 hour tow. Barber's a 2.5 hour tow.
yeah
Yeah.
we did the car track at Roebling Road a bunch of times, but we never did the car track there. But Road Atlanta is one of my son's favorites. He won a couple of SCCA races there that we were practicing for the Formula 4 series or USF series. I don't remember what it was, but
I do more flagging.
Oh, do you?
Or EV or, pit and grid. I'm all over the place out there.
Yeah.
I don't have the time or the funding, but mostly it's a time constraint now.
Yeah.
So,
No, I get it. I completely get it. It's for me, it's more money. It's just because I think people would be sick to their stomachs if I told them, what I've got invested into my kids racing at this point.
Let's just keep that between us, man.
Yeah,
it's I don't want Kelly finding out.
It's a silly amount of money.
How much money gets spent?
Like people will tell me, like who told me recently? Somebody said, I was talking with Greg Jones from Martin yesterday, Martin Lighting, and he was telling me, I've got my daughter plays tennis, and we're spending sometimes as much as $1,500, $2,000 a weekend to be at these tennis tournaments, for her.
Chuckle.
And I'm like, dude, hold my beer.
Drop another couple of zeros on there, bro.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
Have a chat.
It's like you have no idea. And like, I'll give you an example. USF Junior, we got to be the first race series to race on the Lake of the Ozarks, Ozark International Raceway, which, funny side story. So I'm on the nav going from like St. Louis Airport to the raceway. So I put in, the name of the raceway, which they gave me, which was Ozarks International Raceway. So we get there and I'm at the gate and the gate's locked and I'm looking inside and it's a drag strip and I don't see any trucks or anything, like, cause there would have been tons of transporters there and I don't see anything. And I call our team manager and I'm like, where are you? And he goes, we're at the track waiting for you. Where are you? And I said, I guess we're at the wrong track. I don't know. And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you there's two tracks. And I guess even some of the team transporters had showed up at this wrong track.
Oh, man.
Like, why would you name two tracks Ozark International Raceway? Why? Like, change one of those names, please. But anyways, so this was the first real race event at this track. It's a club track for rich old guys, right?
Right.
And it's the first time they had a real event in there, and it was us and Porsche Club of America. Us and it might have been Porsche GT3. I don't remember. It was one of the Porsche series.
Well, okay.
But a big series. And so we get there and the first race, well, actually, no, the first practice, like half the cars went off the track. So it's a blind down, turn one is a blind downhill off camber left turn, hard left, 90-degree left, downhill off camber with no runoff. So imagine how many cars got wrecked in that first
All
turn.
of them.
Like lots of cars. Porsches were being destroyed. Like, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 Porsches were being destroyed. So we're in race one of the weekend, and my son's fast. I think we qualified third or something. And we're in race one. A kid in front of him, I think we were lapping the kid, if I remember correctly, but a kid in front of us spins, highest speed part of the track. We're doing 160 probably. And he spins in front of us and goes off the track, doesn't hit his brakes. So he rolls back onto the track right in front of my son. And so my son had to make a hard left real quick. And there was a bunch of runoff, but the guy behind him also followed us to do the hard left, hit us, and basically helped push us into the wall, totaled the car, like snapped our freaking, gearbox off the engine and, snapped the carbon fiber chassis in half, the tub. It was just a disaster. It was like a $100,000 wreck in race one. Well, get this. The very first time I ever bought insurance in a race, ever. Like, I had never bought insurance. But as soon as I saw this track, I just went, this is going to be bad. Like nobody's ever been here. It's a disaster. There's going to be problems. How much was that insurance again? And so I bought the insurance and we totaled the car in the first race. Crazy. Just lunacy.
Where's Jeremy now? Is he here in the States or is he still over in Europe?
No, he's in the States now. He's actually this week he's in Homestead. He's coaching somebody in USF 2000. And I believe then he's coaching a karting kid on the weekend or something. I don't know. He's got two different things going on this week in Homestead. But yeah, he travels around. He's doing a bunch of coaching right now. He likes it. He wants to be in a car racing. He really wants to do that. But, you know, who knows what's going to happen. I don't know right now. Like he's got a lot of friends. He's got a lot of people who like him. He won a lot of big races and you know, he's got a good name. He just doesn't have a billionaire dad, you know. So
is IMSA on his radar at all?
Yes, but you know, IMSA is another one where, I mean, you got to do a couple of paid years in IMSA and it's, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 a season, you know, so it's real money, you know, it's real money. And so, you know, yeah, he's in line with everybody else looking for cash right now, you know. Damn. And if he finds it, great. If he doesn't find it, you know, I've bankrolled him for 10 years and that's over because now I'm 60, you know, and now I really need to focus on the rest of my life too.
Right. Yeah.
Also I want to leave him something when I go, you know, and I'm not gonna if I just keep spending it all on motorsports. So,
well, you and I both know what the commitment it takes to get a car out there and to do this thing, right? And all the learning that goes with it and all the crash damage that goes with it and all the stuff that you can't control because some guy thinks he's Mario freaking Andretti. Yeah. And he's not. Yeah. That was a thing with the HSR and the SVRA guys, with the vintage racing guys. Yeah. They have zero tolerance for the trust fund babies, right? Yeah. Because these guys get out there and they've got some Mac Daddy ungodly fast machine. Yeah. And they have no idea what to do with it except, you know, skinny pedal down, and they just
there is a flip side to that though. Yeah, there is a flip side to that. Because we bought an F2000 car, which I still have, just to practice in, right? And so we'll join any SCCA, or we would at the time when we were racing big series, we would join any SCCA race because SCCA was the governing body of some of these race series, like you know, like Formula 4 and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. You were able to do SCCA races even on competitive tracks a couple of weeks before you were going to be racing the big series at that track. So we'd look for an SCCA race a couple weeks before we were at Road America or Road Atlanta or wherever. And the problem was, like, all these old guys would always have attitude right away. Oh, yeah, young kid, you know, coming into our series and thinks you're going to take it. And, you know, I remember one at Sebring. It was terrible. Like, Jeremy won by almost 2 full laps in rain. It was raining bad, and he had just come back from spending a few months in England. He was unbelievable on a wet track. Like, in England, you're racing different levels of wet every damn time you're on the track. Every day. Like, you go from dry to wet to cold to warm to hot to wet again to damp to, you know, it's just insane the experience you're going to get wet racing in England. So anyways, he comes back. He's a lap and a half he won this race by. And so we had used some shitty old dry rotted rain tires that were in the trailer for the guy who managed Jeremy when he raced here. They were in his trailer, and you might even know him, a guy named John Betos.
I know who he is. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, he had these old shitty tires. They were probably about 6 or 7 pounds heavier than the spec tire for SCCA for this race. And they were old and dry rotted. I mean, they were a probably second or two a lap disadvantage they gave us, wheels. Right? They were just disgusting, these tires. So anyways, we win the race by a lap and a half, and half hour later, a tech guy comes over to our tent or our truck or whatever and says, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, but we have to disqualify you." And we're like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, the two guys in second and third have filed a protest over your rain tires because they're not spec rain tires." And we're like, "Take a look at these things, will you?" Please just take a look. They are not only a disadvantage, but a big disadvantage. And we weren't going to buy brand new rain tires to race an SCCA race with a bunch of old guys.
For one day.
Come on, man. If we had the right tires, we would have beat them by 3 laps, And so they actually took away his first place trophy and went and took it to this guy. And Jeremy had to stand like in third place behind first and second on the podium. And I made him do it, because he was like, "F that, I'm not going on the podium with these clowns." And he actually almost got in a fist fight with like this 70-year-old guy who was talking smack to him on the podium, like fucking cheater and all this bullshit, right? And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like, first of all, you can keep your trophy. I didn't even want it. Like, I'm here to practice. I'm not here to beat up on old men. And, secondly, you're so fucking slow. Like, you shouldn't be worried about me. You should be worried about you. Don't worry about me. Like, I know what I'm doing. You might want to worry about your own racing lines and stuff, right?"
Dude, so I've had the complete opposite experience with the guys, because it's like, anytime the car gets bent, by the time you get back from medical, the other Formula Ford guys have already got your front, the front corner off and have getting the spare parts out of your trailer and putting the shit back together.
Yeah.
Because there's no money in it, right? We're all doing it for fun. They just want to be on track. They want everybody to be on track, get as much track time as we can, get as much fun as we can. That's how it should be. And that's been my experience. So that's why I try to.
That was our experience sometimes. But the problem is when a 17-year-old kid beats a bunch of old guys who have been racing for friggin' 30, 40 years badly by a couple of laps, they get upset, and they get these egos.
You were running
this was FX, they call it in SCCA. It was because it was a F2000.
F2000,
It was an F2000. So basically a F1600, same body, but with wings on it.
Dude, and that's a shame, man. I'm sorry you had that experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, overall, I'm not giving shit to the SCCA. I like the SCCA. Yeah. They're nice people, and we talk to them once a year to get his international FIA license, because it's easier getting it through them than it is going straight to the FIA. Yeah. I mean, it's expensive. Like, we just had to get it to go over for one race. He had somebody pay for him to be in the car for one race, and it was $1,100, I think, or something, to get the license for one race. So. Yeah, but, I love it. I have a love-hate. I actually miss go-kart races, because go-kart races, the camaraderie among dads, I have great friends still from our time racing karts. And
neither one of my kids were interested at all.
Really?
Tried to get them into quarter midgets.
To me, kart racing is the greatest thing on earth. Like, as far as motorsport, it, to me, is some of the most fun racing to watch. It's some of the most competitive and professional racing to watch. Like, people, again, they think go-karts and they're like, "Oh yeah, you race little go-karts." We're on transporters that are as big as some IndyCar teams. We're in tents that are as professional as IndyCar teams. And, many of us are spending $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a weekend to be in a go-kart race,
100%.
And so, like, this stuff's seriously professional racing. Jeremy, fortunately, for the last couple of years he raced in karts, was fully sponsored. So, like, Tony Kart was giving him a free chassis every 2 races.
Oh, sweet.
And we were getting
that's
pretty
half
much
the
full
battle, man.
The mechanic was on my payroll, but other than that, everything was sponsored. The team, the tent, it was all sponsored. So yeah. Well, man, it's been fun. I'm hungry. It's past my lunchtime. And, it's been amazing. I feel like we could talk for 2 more hours and hear all your stories.
I would love to.
We'll have to do it again for sure. We'll have to do it again.
Please. If you hit that spot, call me. I would love to jump back on with you.
No,
man.
we'll bring you back on again,
So
and we'll
much
come up.
more, so much more turf to cover.
Yeah, we do. But, I mean, the other thing is Eric Loader from Elation is one of our sponsors, and he always complains, Marcel, you got to keep it at an hour or an hour and a half. Anything more than that, you're going to lose listeners. And I'm like, Eric, hit pause, listen to the other half later. That's what I do. I mean, I'll listen to 3-hour Joe Rogan episodes over a week,
Oh, hey, real quick before we sign off, do you listen to the Dale Jr. download?
No.
You need to check that out.
Really? I'm not a NASCAR guy, though.
But here's the beauty of it. When you go back through he has such an affinity for the history of the sport.
Yeah.
And when he gets on people like Leonard Wood or Harry Gant, he gets a lot of these old school guys who were like crew chiefs and drivers and mechanics in like the 70s and 80s. And they talk about the innovation you were alluding to earlier with racing. The downright dirtiest cheating shit ever, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's really cool to hear those kinds of stories. I'm not a massive NASCAR fan either, but I love Dale. I've loved what he's done for the sport. I love what he's done with the podcast and his respect for all these different generations of owners, drivers, mechanics, and people in racing.
I love that stuff. It's like this guy, John Betos, who's, what's his company? Jesus Christ. I can't remember the name of his frickin' company that sells parts and stuff in racing. Holy shit. I can't believe I forget. It was the name of his racing team forever. But do you know Henry Gilbert? Down in South Florida, Hollywood, Florida. He has a Corvette racing school. He does, he's got a Daytona prototype car that he drives once in a while, but he rents it out a lot. And he's been around racing forever. Or John, the SCCA guy from South Florida, John, Italian last name, I forget his name. Great guy. I've known him for 100 years. Can't remember his last name.
I don't know a lot of those cats outside of my region up
here. Yeah. Well, John was pretty famous. He died a couple years ago, sadly, but he was pretty famous in the SCCA ranks. But anyways, let's do it again and talk more about lighting, talk more about racing, but I've enjoyed it. It's been fun,
Marcel,
man.
Thank you so much.
2 hours went by like nothing.
Dude, I'm so grateful. Thank you very much for having me on.
I'm grateful
this
to you.
This has been awesome.
Yeah,
this
likewise.
has been awesome.
And good luck with both of your new businesses.
Thank you very much.
I like what you're doing, and I think there's some legs there. So hopefully it works out. You're doing something at LDI, right? You're going to have a booth there or something.
I think we're going to have a presence. We may be off-site and we may host an evening.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that you're going to do anything.
We may host an evening.
Yeah,
somewhere and have an off-site.
Yeah, good. Cool.
And the same thing with NAB and some other
stuff.
It's
expensive to do all those shows when you're first starting out. Trust me, I get it.
It is, but we need to go ahead and make the presence.
Yeah.
So we'll have some experience by the time those roll around. We'll have some field experience and some feedback. So it's all good.
Yeah. All right, buddy. All right. Well, thank you so much, brother. And we'll see you.
Cheers.
All right.